The night Clara Hayes kissed a stranger to forget her humiliation, she had no idea she was kissing her future boss. What started as one reckless moment at a rooftop party turned into the most dangerous complication of her life. Because the man whose lips she couldn't forget became the billionaire single dad she now had to face every single day. Damian Wolf, creative director, her boss, and the one person who could destroy everything she'd worked for. This is their story. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The rain hadn't started yet, but Clara Hayes could feel it coming. That electric charge in the air, the way the wind picked up just enough to make her wish she'd brought a jacket. She stood on the edge of the rooftop bar in Chelsea, gripping a glass of cheap Prosecco she didn't even want, watching her ex-boyfriend Marcus laugh with his arm draped around someone new, someone younger, someone thinner, someone who probably didn't have student loans the size of a mortgage. "You okay?" her friend Jenna asked, appearing at her elbow with concern written all over her face. Clara forced a smile. "Yeah, totally fine." She wasn't fine. She was 30 years old, starting a new job on Monday that she desperately needed, and standing at a party she shouldn't have come to in the first place. Marcus had broken up with her 3 months ago, citing the classic "it's not you, it's me" line that really meant it's absolutely you, and I've already found someone better. Seeing him here tonight, at Jenna's birthday celebration no less, felt like the universe had a sick sense of humor. "He's an idiot," Jenna said, following Clara's gaze. "You know that, right?" "I know." Clara took a sip of her drink, the bubbles flat and disappointing. "Doesn't make it easier to watch." Marcus threw his head back, laughing at something the new girlfriend said, and Clara felt something twist in her chest. Not heartbreak. She was past that. This was worse. This was humiliation, the kind that made her skin burn and her throat tight. She'd wasted 2 years on him. 2 years of cooking dinners he barely appreciated, of listening to him complain about his startup that never quite took off, of making herself smaller so he could feel bigger. And this was what she got. Public replacement at a party where everyone knew their history. "I need air," Clara muttered, even though they were already outside. She pushed through the crowd, past the DJ booth pumping out something with too much bass, past the influencers posing for Instagram, past all of it. The rooftop had a back section, less crowded, where the smokers usually congregated. She headed there, needing space to breathe, to think, to figure out how the hell she was going to get through the rest of this night. The back corner was darker, quieter. A few people leaned against the railing, cigarette tips glowing orange in the dimness. Clara found an empty spot and gripped the metal barrier, looking out at the New York skyline. The city stretched endless before her, millions of lights, millions of lives, and somehow she felt completely alone in the middle of it all. "Rough night?" The voice came from her left, deep, slightly amused. Clara glanced over and saw a man she didn't recognize, tall, dark hair, expensive suit, that even in the low light looked like it cost more than her rent. He wasn't smoking, just standing there, drink in hand, watching the city like she was. "You could say that," Clara replied, surprised she answered at all. He turned to look at her properly, and even in the darkness she could make out sharp features, the kind of face that belonged on a magazine cover, or a billboard, the kind of face that made you forget how to form coherent sentences. "Let me guess," he said, a slight smile playing at his lips. "Ex-boyfriend at the party with a new girlfriend?" Clara laughed, bitter and short. "That obvious? I've seen that look before." He took a sip of whatever was in his glass. Whiskey, probably. Something that cost more than her entire bar tab. The "I'm too good for this but it still stings" look. "Wow, you just psychoanalyzed me in under 10 seconds. That's a new record. Sorry." But he didn't sound sorry. He sounded entertained. "I have a habit of reading people. Occupational hazard." "What do? Run a fortune-telling booth?" "Something like that." They stood in silence for a moment, both looking out at the skyline. Clara could hear the party behind them, the music and laughter and chatter of people having the kind of night she wasn't having. Part of her wanted to go back, to prove she was fine, to show Marcus she didn't care. But a bigger part wanted to stay right here, in this quiet corner with a stranger who didn't know her history. "Can I ask you something?" the man said. "You're going to anyway. Fair point." He shifted, turning to face her more fully. "Why are you still here? At a party that's clearly making you miserable?" Clara considered the question. Why was she here? Pride, probably. Stubbornness. the refusal to let Marcus win by leaving early. Because leaving feels like admitting defeat, and staying feels like victory. Staying feels like survival. He studied her for a long moment, and Clara had the strange sensation of being truly seen, not judged, not dismissed, but actually looked at. It was unsettling and oddly comforting at the same time. "I'm Damien," he said finally, extending his hand. Clara hesitated, then took it. His grip was firm, warm. "Clara?" "Well, Clara, I have a theory." "Of course you do." The best way to handle an ex flaunting a new relationship is to make them irrelevant. Don't give them the satisfaction of knowing they still affect you. Easier said than done when they're 20 feet away playing happy couple. "Then don't play their game. Play a different one." Clara raised an eyebrow. "What kind of game?" Damien's smile widened slightly, something mischievous flickering in his eyes. "The kind where you look like you're having the time of your life. Where you're so wrapped up in your own moment that his moment doesn't matter." "And how exactly do I do that?" "You could start by not looking miserable in a corner." Clara laughed despite herself. "You have a real way with words, you know that?" "So I've been told." The rain started then, fat drops that splattered against the rooftop, sending the smokers scrambling for cover. Within seconds, it went from sprinkle to downpour, and people shrieked and rushed toward the covered section of the bar. Clara just stood there, letting it soak her, not caring any more about her dress or her hair or any of it. Damien didn't move either. The rain plastered his dark hair to his forehead, made his expensive suit cling to his shoulders, but he seemed as unconcerned as she was. "We should probably go inside," Clara said, but she didn't move. "Probably." They stood there serene, two strangers getting drenched, and something shifted in the air between them. Something electric and reckless, and completely inadvisable. Clara felt it in her chest, that flutter of possibility, of danger, of something she absolutely should not do. "What are you thinking?" Damien asked, his voice lower now, almost lost in the sound of rain. The truth was, Clara was thinking about how much she wanted to do something stupid, something that would make her feel alive instead of discarded, something that would erase the image of Marcus's arm around someone else and replace it with something better, something hers, even if just for a moment. "I'm thinking," Clara said slowly, "that I want to stop playing it safe. Safe is overrated. You don't even know me." "I know enough," and maybe it was the rain or the Prosecco or the humiliation still burning in her chest, but Clara took a step closer. Close enough to see the water droplets on his eyelashes, close enough to feel the heat coming off him despite the cold rain. "This is a bad idea," she whispered. "The best ones usually are." Clara didn't let herself think. Thinking led to hesitation, and hesitation led to regret, and she was so tired of regret. So she did the one thing she swore she'd never do at a party where her ex was 20 feet away. She kissed a complete stranger. The moment their lips met, everything else disappeared. The party, Marcus, her fear about Monday's new job, all of it vanished into the rain and the darkness. Damien's hand came up to cup her jaw, gentle but sure, and Clara's fingers found the wet fabric of his shirt collar. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, testing. Then it deepened, became something urgent and hungry, and thoroughly inappropriate for a rooftop in Chelsea. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't her. She didn't kiss strangers, she didn't make impulsive decisions. She was the girl who color-coded her calendar and meal prepped on Sundays, and always, always played it safe. But right now, with rain soaking through her clothes and this stranger's mouth on hers, safe felt like the last thing she wanted to be. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Clara's mind started to catch up with her body. Reality crept back in. What the hell was she doing? She didn't know this man, didn't know his last name, where he lived, anything about him except that he kissed like he meant it and looked at her like she was worth looking at. "I should go," Clara said, stepping back, suddenly very aware of how reckless this was. Damien's expression was unreadable. "You sure?" "No." She wasn't sure about anything, but staying felt more dangerous than leaving, so she nodded. "Yeah, I'm sure." She turned and walked away before he could say anything else, before she could change her mind, before she could do something even more stupid. Her heart was still racing, her lips still tingling, and some part of her brain was screaming that she'd just made a massive mistake. But another part, the part that felt alive for the first time in months, didn't care. Monday morning came too fast. Clara stood outside the glass tower that housed Wolf Creative Agency, watching people in expensive suits filter through the revolving doors, and tried to calm the anxiety clawing at her chest. This was it. Her dream job. The position she'd worked 5 years to qualify for, sent countless applications for, interviewed 3 separate times for. She couldn't screw this up. The weekend had been a blur of preparation, researching the agency's client list, reviewing her portfolio, choosing the perfect first-day outfit. She'd pushed Friday night to the back of her mind, locked it away as a moment of temporary insanity best forgotten. The kiss with the stranger, Damien, his name was Damien, meant nothing. A blip. A footnote in a night she was already trying to forget. "You've got this," Clara whispered to herself, smoothing down her black blazer one more time. She pushed through the doors and into the gleaming lobby, all marble floors and modern art installations. The receptionist, a woman in her 50s with perfect posture and a warm smile, directed Clara to the 14th floor for orientation. The elevator ride felt like an eternity. Clara watched the numbers climb, her reflection distorted in the brushed metal doors. She looked professional, put together, like someone who belonged here, like someone who definitely didn't kiss random strangers at parties. The doors opened to reveal an open-plan office space that belonged in an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek white desks, creative briefs pinned to corkboards, the hum of productive energy. A young man with trendy glasses and a clipboard spotted her immediately. "You must be Clara Hayes," he said, extending his hand enthusiastically. "I'm Marcus." Clara's stomach dropped for a second before she realized this was a different Marcus, not her ex. Just an unfortunate name coincidence. "Marcus Chen, Junior Coordinator. I'll be showing you around today and getting you set up. Welcome to Wolf Creative." "Thanks," Clara managed, shaking his hand and trying to refocus. "Excited to be here. Let me give you the tour first, then we'll head to the morning meeting. Fair warning, Mondays are intense here. All hands creative briefing at 9, which means you'll meet everyone at once, including the big boss." Damien Wolf? Claire had researched the agency's founder, of course. 32 years old, built the company from nothing in just 7 years, known for innovative campaigns that push boundaries. There were articles about him in Adweek, Forbes, Fast Company. But the photos had been professional headshots, formal and distant. She'd barely looked at them, too focused on studying the agency's work itself. "The one and only," Marcus Chen confirmed, leading her through the office. "He's intense. Brilliant, but intense. Expects perfection, doesn't tolerate excuses, works harder than anyone here. But if you prove yourself, there's nowhere better to build a career." They passed desk after desk, art directors sketching concepts, copywriters typing furiously, producers on phone calls, the organized chaos of creativity in motion. Clara's anxiety transformed into excitement. This was exactly where she wanted to be. Marcus showed her to her desk, a clean space near the windows with a brand new computer and a welcome packet. "You've got about 15 minutes before the meeting. Bathrooms around the corner, coffee stations over there. Any questions?" "I think I'm good. Thanks." "Great. I'll come grab you at 5 till 9. Conference rooms on the other side of the floor." He left and Clara sank into her chair, taking a moment to breathe. She'd made it. She was here. Now she just had to prove she deserved to stay. She spent the next 15 minutes organizing her desk supplies and reviewing the welcome packet, trying to ignore the nervous flutter in her stomach. First days were always nerve-wracking, but this felt bigger. This job could change everything. Better pay, better opportunities, better future. She couldn't afford to mess it up. At 8:55, Marcus Chen reappeared. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be." The conference room was already packed when they arrived. Clara did a quick count. Maybe 30 people, all looking creative and competent, and like they belonged here much more than she did. She found a seat toward the back, wanting to observe more than be observed on her first day. "Wolf should be here any second," someone whispered to their neighbor. "He's never late." Clara pulled out her notebook, ready to take notes, to absorb everything, to prove she was worth the chance they'd taken on her. She kept her eyes on the blank page, pen ready, breathing steady. The room quieted suddenly, that shift in energy that meant someone important had entered. Clara looked up, expecting to see some version of the professional headshots she'd barely glanced at during her research. Instead, she saw Damien, the man from Friday night, the stranger she'd kissed in the rain, standing at the front of the conference room in a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, dark hair neatly styled, Those same sharp features she'd only seen in darkness and downpour, now clearly visible in the fluorescent light. Their eyes met across the room, and Clara watched recognition hit him the exact same moment it hit her. His expression didn't change, he was too controlled for that, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise. Maybe concern. Definitely awareness. Clara's entire body went cold, then hot, then cold again. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. The stranger from the party, the man she'd impulsively kissed to forget her humiliation, was Damian Wolfe, her boss, the founder and creative director of the agency she'd just started working for. She was going to be sick. Damian recovered faster than she did, smoothly transitioning into his opening remarks as if nothing had happened. But Clara could barely hear him. Her mind was racing, catastrophizing, imagining every possible way this could destroy her career before it even started. What if he thought she'd known who he was? What if he thought she'd kissed him as some kind of manipulation to get ahead? What if he told HR? What if he fired her on her first day? And I'd like to welcome our newest team member, Damian was saying, and Clara's attention snapped back to the present with nauseating speed. Clara Hayes, joining us as a mid-level creative. Clara, want to stand and introduce yourself? Every eye in the room turned to her. Clara stood on legs that felt like water, forcing what she hoped was a professional smile. Hi everyone, I'm Clara, really excited to be here and looking forward to working with all of you. She sat down immediately, avoiding Damian's gaze, her face burning. Professional. She had to be professional. This was a workplace. Friday night was a mistake, a moment of insanity that would never be repeated or mentioned. They could both pretend it never happened. They had to. The meeting continued, Damian walking through the week's priorities, upcoming client presentations, deadlines. Claire tried to focus, to take notes, to look engaged, but her hand shook slightly as she wrote, and she couldn't quite block out the memory of that kiss. The rain, the rooftop, his hand on her jaw. This was a nightmare. When the meeting finally ended, Clara planned to bolt straight to her desk and hide there forever. But Damian's voice cut through her escape plan. Clara, can I see you in my office for a moment? Every head in the room turned again. Great. Perfect. Nothing suspicious about the new employee being called into the boss's office on her first day. Of course, Clara said, her voice steadier than she felt. She followed Damian out of the conference room and down a hallway to a corner office with his name on the door. He held it open for her, and she stepped inside, her heart hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. The office was immaculate. Modern furniture, awards on shelves, a window view that probably cost more than most people's apartments. Damian closed the door behind them and turned to face her, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. We should talk about Friday night, Damian said finally. Clara wrapped her arms around herself, defensive. There's nothing to talk about. It was a mistake. A stupid, impulsive mistake that I regret, and it will never happen again. I didn't say I regretted it. That stopped her. Clara stared at him, trying to read his expression, and coming up blank. He was too good at the professional mask. What? I said I didn't regret it, but you're right that it complicates things. Complicates? Clara laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. That's an understatement. You're my boss. This is my first day. She cut herself off, pressing her palms to her eyes. I swear I didn't know who you were. I would never have, if I'd known. I believe you. Clara dropped her hands. You do? Yes. Damian moved to lean against his desk, putting some distance between them. You looked as shocked as I felt when I walked into that meeting. This was just bad timing and worse luck. So what happens now? Now, Damian said carefully, we do our jobs. You're here because you earned it. I reviewed your portfolio personally before we made the offer. Your work is good. Really good. I'm not going to let one kiss at a party change that. Clara wanted to feel relieved, but something in his tone made her wary. But we need to be clear about boundaries. What happened Friday night was a moment. It doesn't happen again, not while you work here. We're professional, we're colleagues, and that's it. Agreed. Clara said it quickly, firmly, needing him to know she understood. Completely agreed. Good. They stood there for another moment, the tension thick enough to cut. Clara hated how aware she was of him, the way he stood, the way his suit fit. The memory of how he'd kissed her in the rain. She shoved those thoughts down hard and locked them away. Is that all? she asked. That's all. Welcome to Wolf Creative, Clara. She nodded and turned to leave, her hand on the door handle when his voice stopped her one more time. Clara? She looked back, and for just a second, his professional mask slipped. She saw the same hunger in his eyes that she felt in her chest, the awareness, the memory, the thing they were both pretending didn't exist. Good luck today. Clara fled before she could do something stupid. The next 2 weeks were torture. Clara threw herself into work, determined to prove she deserved to be at Wolf Creative regardless of what had happened. She stayed late, volunteered for extra projects, studied every brief like it was a final exam, and slowly, gradually, she started to find her rhythm. The team was talented but welcoming, happy to have fresh perspective. Marcus Chen became a work friend, always ready with coffee and office gossip. The projects were challenging in the best way. Real clients, real budgets, real stakes. And Damien was always there, a constant presence she couldn't escape. He ran the agency with the kind of intensity Marcus had warned her about. High standards, higher expectations, no tolerance for mediocrity. Clara watched him in meetings, the way he pushed people to think bigger, to take risks, to trust their instincts. He was brilliant and demanding and occasionally terrifying, but she could see why people respected him. She could also see why she'd kissed him. Not that it mattered. They'd established boundaries. They were professional. Every interaction was carefully controlled, their conversations limited to work topics, their body language neutral and appropriate. But Clara felt the tension anyway, in the way his eyes lingered on her for a fraction too long during presentations, in the way her pulse jumped whenever he walked past her desk, in the way they both carefully avoided being alone together. It was exhausting. "You're doing great, you know," Marcus told her one afternoon, dropping into the chair next to her desk. "Wolf mentioned in the senior team meeting that your concepts for the lifestyle brand were some of the strongest he'd seen." Clara looked up from her computer, surprised. "He said that? Don't sound so shocked. You're good at this." "Thanks." She saved her work and turned to face Marcus. "Can I ask you something?" "Shoot. What's Wolf's deal? Like, personally. I know he's a genius creative director and built this place from nothing, but what's his story?" Marcus glanced around, as if checking for eavesdroppers, then leaned in conspiratorially. "You mean, why is a 32-year-old billionaire still single and working 80-hour weeks?" "I guess. Rumor has it he's a single dad. Has a young son, maybe 6 or 7. Doesn't talk about it much, keeps his personal life locked down tight. But a few people have seen him take calls from a nanny, adjust his schedule for pickup times, that sort of thing." Clara's chest tightened. A son. Damien had a child. That detail felt significant somehow, a piece of information that made him more real, more human, more complicated. "What about the kid's mom?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Marcus shrugged. "No idea. Like I said, he doesn't talk about it. Some people think she's not in the picture at all, but that's just speculation. Wolf keeps his personal life completely separate from work." That explained a lot, actually. The control, the boundaries, the way he'd pulled back so quickly from anything that resembled emotional risk. Damien Wolf wasn't just her boss. He was a father protecting his world from complications. "Why the sudden interest?" Marcus asked, eyebrows raised. "No reason. Just trying to figure out how things work around here." Marcus didn't look convinced, but he let it drop. "Well, if you want my advice, do good work, don't get involved in office drama, and never ever miss a Monday morning meeting. That's the secret to survival at Wolf Creative." Noted. That night, Clara stayed late again, working on a pitch for a potential new client. The office had emptied out by 7, just a few dedicated souls scattered across the floor. She liked the quiet, the way the city lights looked through the windows, the feeling of making progress when no one was watching. She was so focused on her screen that she didn't notice Damien until he spoke. "You're here late." Clara jumped, hand to her chest. Damien stood a few feet away, jacket gone, sleeves rolled up, looking tired but alert. "You scared me," she said. "Sorry, thought you saw me." "Too focused, I guess." Damien moved closer, peering at her screen. "The athletic wear pitch?" "Yeah. I had some ideas I wanted to get down before I forgot them." He studied her work for a moment, and Clara tried not to be hyper-aware of how close he was standing. She could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle that she'd noticed before and tried very hard not to think about. "This is good," Damien said finally. "The angle about authentic performance versus Instagram performance, that's smart." "You think?" "I do." He stepped back, creating distance again. "You should include it in tomorrow's team review." "Okay, thanks." They stood there for a beat too long, the office quiet around them, the tension back in full force. Claire searched for something professional to say, something that would break the moment and remind them both why this couldn't happen. "I heard you have a son," she said, and immediately regretted it. Damien's expression shuddered. "Where'd you hear that?" "Office talk. People speculate." "They shouldn't." "I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to pry." Damien sighed, running a hand through his hair. "No, I'm sorry. I'm just protective. Yes, I have a son, Leo. He's 7, and he's the reason I don't blur lines between work and personal life." "I understand." "Do you?" Clara met his eyes. "I think so. You've built something incredible here, and you have someone depending on you at home. You can't afford complications." "Exactly." But Damien didn't move away. "Which is why this," he gestured between them, "whatever this tension is, it can't go anywhere." "I know." "Because you're talented, Clara, really talented, and I don't want to be the reason you don't reach your full potential here." Something warm bloomed in Clara's chest at the compliment, even as the rest of his words reinforced the wall between them. "I appreciate that." "Good." Damien checked his watch. "You should go home, get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be busy." "Right, yeah." Clara started packing up her things, hyper-conscious of Damien still standing there watching her. When she swung her bag over her shoulder and turned to leave, she found him closer than she'd expected, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Damien, I need you to know something," he said quietly. "The boundaries, the professionalism, keeping distance. It's not because that kiss meant nothing." Claire's breath caught. "Then why?" "Because it meant too much, and that scares the hell out of me." Before Claire could process that, before she could respond, Damien stepped back and walked away, leaving her standing alone in the empty office with her heart racing and her mind spinning. She was in so much trouble. 3 weeks into her new job, Clara was assigned to her first major project, a campaign pitch for a luxury hotel chain looking to rebrand. It was a big deal, the kind of account that could establish her reputation at the agency. And she was teamed with 3 other creatives, including someone named Philip, who immediately rubbed her the wrong way. Philip was mid-30s, cocky, and had the kind of confidence that came from never being challenged. He dominated the first team meeting, talking over everyone else's ideas and claiming credit for concepts that weren't his. "What we need," Philip announced, "is something bold, disruptive, not another pretty hotel campaign." Clara bit her tongue, waiting for her chance to contribute. When there was finally a pause, she jumped in. "What if we focused on transformation? The idea that luxury isn't about escaping your life, it's about remembering who you are." Philip laughed. "That's nice, Clara, but a little soft. We need edge." "It's not soft," Clara countered, keeping her voice steady. "It's human. People don't want another hotel telling them how exclusive they are. They want to feel seen. And you know what people want after 3 weeks here?" The condescension in his tone made Clara's jaw tight. "I know what I want when I'm exhausted and overwhelmed. I know what resonates emotionally versus what just sounds clever." Philip leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Emotional, right." The third team member, a quiet art director named Samira, spoke up. "I actually think Clara's onto something. The transformation angle could be really powerful visually." "Of course you do," Philip muttered, barely loud enough to hear, but loud enough to sting. The meeting continued, but Clara's enthusiasm had dimmed. She contributed a few more times, but Philip shot down everything she said, twisting her words or dismissing them outright. By the time they wrapped, she was frustrated and doubting herself. "Don't let him get to you," Samira said as they walked back to their desks. "Philip's been here 4 years and thinks that makes him untouchable. But Wolf doesn't care about seniority. He cares about good work." "Thanks. I'm just trying to prove I belong here." "You do belong here. Your ideas were the best ones in that room." Clara wanted to believe her, but Philip's dismissal had dug under her skin. She'd dealt with men like him before. Men who felt threatened by women who spoke up, who protected their territory by making others feel small. She just hadn't expected to encounter it somewhere that prided itself on innovation. That night, she stayed late again, developing the transformation concept on her own. If Philip wasn't going to take her seriously in meetings, she'd show up with work so good he couldn't ignore it. She was deep into sketching out visual ideas when a shadow fell across her desk. "Please tell me you're not here because of Philip." Clara looked up to find Damien standing there, arms crossed, expression somewhere between concerned and annoyed. "How did you—" "I have eyes and ears everywhere, and Philip has a reputation." Clara sat back in her chair. "He's not that bad." "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Minimize it. Make yourself smaller to avoid conflict." Damien pulled over a chair and sat down, close enough that Clara could see the fatigue in his eyes. "I've seen it happen too many times. Talented people, especially women, letting people like Philip crush their confidence because speaking up feels harder than staying quiet. I spoke up in the meeting, and he made me feel stupid for it." Damien's jaw tightened. "Show me what you're working on." Clara hesitated, then turned her laptop so he could see. She walked him through her concept, the transformation idea, the visual direction, the copy angles. As she talked, she forgot to be nervous, forgot about Philip's dismissal, forgot about everything except the work. When she finished, Damien was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his whole face. "This is exactly what they need," he said. "It's smart, it's emotional, and it's completely unexpected." Relief flooded through Clara. "Really? Really, develop it further. I want to see a full presentation by Friday." "What about the team? Philip's supposed to be leading this." "I'll handle Philip. You just focus on making this concept sing." Damien stood to leave, but Clara stopped him with a question she'd been wondering about for weeks. "Why did you hire me?" He turned back, eyebrow raised. "What?" "I know you reviewed my portfolio personally. Marcus told me. But there were probably dozens of candidates. Why me?" Damien considered the question carefully. "Because your work had something most people's didn't." "What?" "Truth. Every concept felt like it came from a real place, a real understanding of what makes people tick. That's rare. Most creatives are just chasing what looks impressive. You're chasing what matters." Clara's throat tightened. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just keep doing it." He left, and Clara sat there for a long moment, something warm and dangerous growing in her chest. This was how it happened, she realized. This was how boundaries got blurred and lines got crossed. Not through grand gestures or dramatic moments, but through quiet conversations in empty offices, through someone seeing you clearly and reflecting back something you didn't quite believe about yourself. She was falling for her boss, and there wasn't a damn thing she could do to stop it. Friday came faster than Clara expected, and with it, the presentation that could make or break her reputation at the agency. She'd spent every spare moment refining the transformation concept, building it into something she actually believed in. Samira had helped with the visual mock-ups, staying late 2 nights in a row to get the aesthetic exactly right. "You nervous?" Samira asked as they set up the conference room. "Terrified," Clara admitted, arranging her notes for the 3rd time. "Don't be. This is going to kill." The team filtered in, Philip looking smug and unbothered, the account managers, a few senior creatives, and finally Damien, who took his usual seat at the head of the table without looking at Clara directly. She'd learned that was his tell. When he avoided eye contact, it meant he was being extra careful about boundaries. "Let's get started," Damien said. "Philip, you're leading this pitch. What have you got?" Philip stood, confident as ever, and walked through a concept that was fine, perfectly fine. Bold visuals, clever tagline, the kind of campaign that would win awards but not actually connect with anyone. Clara watched Damien's face, looking for a reaction, but he kept his expression neutral. When Philip finished, there was polite applause. The account managers nodded appreciatively. "Solid work," one of them said. "Very on brand for what luxury campaigns usually look like." "Anyone else have thoughts?" Damien asked, his gaze finally landing on Clara. This was it. Her moment to either prove herself or crash spectacularly. "I have an alternative approach," Clara said, standing on legs that felt steadier than she'd expected. "If you're open to hearing it." Philip's expression darkened, but Damien nodded. "Go ahead." Clara pulled up her presentation, and the room went quiet as the first image filled the screen. A woman in a hotel bathrobe, no makeup, messy hair, staring out a window at the sunrise with a cup of coffee. The tagline read, "Remember who you were before you had to be everything." She walked them through the concept, explaining how luxury wasn't about escape, it was about reconnection. How the visuals would show real moments of transformation, not the Instagram perfect kind, but the human kind. A parent rediscovering sleep, a creative finding inspiration again, a couple remembering why they fell in love before kids and mortgages got in the way. The campaign doesn't tell people the hotel is exclusive, Clara said. It shows them what happens when you finally exhale, when you stop performing and start remembering. The silence when she finished felt massive. Claire's heart hammered against her ribs as she waited for someone, anyone, to react. One of the account managers spoke first. "That's actually exactly what the client said they wanted, something that felt different." "It's good," another senior creative added. "Really good." Philip cleared his throat loudly. "It's a nice idea, but isn't it a bit niche? Luxury clients want aspiration, not exhaustion." "Exhaustion is the new normal," Samira jumped in. "Everyone's burned out. This speaks to that." "I agree," Damien said quietly, and the room's attention shifted to him immediately. "This is what we're pitching. Clara's concept, with the full team supporting development." Philip's jaw went tight. "With all due respect, I've been here 4 years and led a dozen pitches. Clara's been here less than a month." "And she just created our strongest concept," Damien said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "This isn't about seniority, Philip. It's about the work. If you can't support that, we can find another project for you." The threat hung in the air. Philip's face flushed, but he nodded stiffly. "Of course. Happy to support the team." "Good." Damien stood. "Clara, you'll present this to the client next week. Samira, Marcus, work with her on the full deck." Meeting adjourned. Everyone filed out, leaving Clara standing there processing what had just happened. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. "Clara!" Damien's voice stopped her before she could leave. "Good work." She turned to find him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Pride, maybe. Or something more complicated. "Thank you for backing me up," she said. "I didn't back you up. I chose the better concept. There's a difference." "Still, it means something." Damien moved closer, lowering his voice even though they were alone. "You earned this. Don't let Philip or anyone else make you doubt that." "I won't." They stood there, the space between them charged with all the things they weren't saying. Clara knew she should leave, should walk away before the moment became something it shouldn't, but her feet stayed planted. "I should go prep for the client meeting," she said finally. "Right. Yes." Damien stepped back, professional distance restored. "Keep me updated on your progress." Clara left before she could do something stupid, but she felt his eyes on her the entire way to the door. The following week blurred into a chaos of preparation. Clara worked 18-hour days, refining every detail of the pitch, anticipating every question, making sure nothing could go wrong. The client meeting was scheduled for Thursday afternoon, and by Wednesday night, Clara was running on caffeine and adrenaline. She was alone in the office again, making final tweaks to the presentation deck, when her phone rang. Jenna's name flashed on the screen. "Please tell me you're not still at work," Jenna said when Clara answered. "Okay, I won't tell you that." "Clara, it's almost 11. You're going to burn out." "I have a massive client pitch tomorrow. I can't afford to burn out yet." Jenna sighed. "At least tell me this job is worth it. That you're happy." Was she happy? Clara considered the question. She was exhausted, stressed, constantly second-guessing herself and harboring completely inappropriate feelings for her boss. But she was also doing work she loved, pushing herself creatively, and finally building the career she'd always wanted. "Yeah," Clara said. "I think I am." "Good, because I haven't seen you in 3 weeks and I miss my best friend." Guilt twisted in Clara's stomach. "I know, I'm sorry. Once this pitch is over, let's do brunch. My treat." "I'll hold you to that." They talked for a few more minutes before hanging up, and Clara felt the loneliness settle back in. She loved the work, but the isolation was getting to her. Long hours meant no social life, no dating, no time for anything except proving herself. Not that she wanted to date anyway. Not when her brain kept circling back to someone completely off limits. "You're still here." Clara jumped, turning to find Damien in her doorway looking as tired as she felt. His tie was loosened, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly disheveled in a way that made him look more human and less like an untouchable boss. "So are you," she pointed out. "Leo's at his grandmother's tonight. Gave me a chance to catch up on work." He moved into the room carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this." Clara accepted the cup gratefully. "You're a lifesaver. How's the deck looking?" "Good, I think. I've looked at it so many times I can't tell anymore." "Want me to review it?" They ended up side by side at her desk, going through the presentation slide by slide. Damien asked sharp questions, pushed her to clarify certain points, but mostly he just reinforced that she'd done excellent work. And somehow, sitting there in the quiet office with coffee and creative strategy, Clara felt more content than she had in weeks. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said, surprising herself. Damien looked wary. "Depends on the question." "Your son, Leo, what's he like?" The wariness softened into something fond. "He's 7 going on 30. Too smart for his own good, obsessed with dinosaurs, and has zero filter. Last week he told his teacher that her haircut made her look like a poodle." Clara laughed. "Oh no. Oh yes. I had to have a very serious conversation about things we think versus things we say out loud." Damien's smile was genuine, unguarded. "He's exhausting and incredible and the best thing I've ever done. It must be hard doing this all on your own." The smile faded slightly. "His mother isn't in the picture. Hasn't been since he was 2. So, yeah, it's hard, but I wouldn't trade it." Clara wanted to ask more. About what happened, about how he managed, about all of it. But something in his expression told her he'd already shared more than he usually did. "He's lucky to have you," she said instead. "I'm the lucky one?" Damien finished his coffee and stood. "You should go home. Get some rest before tomorrow." "I will. Just a few more tweaks." "Clara." She looked up at him. "You're ready. The pitch is solid. Trust yourself." Something in his voice made her chest tight. "Okay." He left, and Clara sat there for a long moment, feeling the weight of everything unsaid between them. Then she packed up her things and headed home, trying not to think about how easy it would be to fall completely. The client meeting was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon, which meant Clara had the entire morning to spiral into anxiety. She changed her outfit 3 times, practiced her talking points until they sounded robotic, and consumed enough coffee to fuel a small army. "Breathe," Samira told her in the bathroom right before the meeting. "You've got this." "What if they hate it?" "They won't hate it. And even if they do, you'll survive and pitch again." Clara tried to absorb that confidence, tried to channel it as she walked into the conference room where 3 executives from the hotel chain sat waiting. Damien was already there, along with the account team, and he gave her a subtle nod of encouragement. "Thank you all for coming," Clara began, her voice steadier than her hands. "We're excited to share our vision for the rebrand." And then she presented. She walked them through the transformation concept, showed them the visuals, explained the strategy behind every choice. She anticipated their questions and answered with confidence she didn't entirely feel, but managed to fake convincingly enough. When she finished, the room was quiet. Clara's stomach dropped. Had she completely misread what they wanted? Then the CEO smiled. "This is exactly what we needed to hear." Relief flooded through her so fast she felt lightheaded. "We've seen a dozen luxury campaigns," the CEO continued, "and they all say the same thing: exclusive, elite, aspirational. But this," she gestured to the presentation, "this actually makes me want to book a room, because I am exhausted. And the idea of remembering who I was before everything got so complicated, that speaks to me." The other executives nodded agreement, and for the next hour they discussed implementation, timelines, budget. Clara fielded questions, took notes, and somehow managed to keep her composure, even though internally she was screaming with excitement. When the clients finally left, promising to send contracts by end of week, the team erupted into congratulations. Marcus hugged her, Samira squeezed her hand, even Philip managed a grudging, "Well done." Damien hung back, watching the celebration with a slight smile. When the others dispersed, he approached Clara. "Told you they'd love it," he said. "You were right. I usually am." But his eyes were warm, proud. "You killed it in there. That's a huge account, and you just landed it in your first month. Clara felt herself beaming. It's surreal. Get used to it. This is just the beginning. They stood there smiling at each other like idiots until one of the account managers called Damien away for something urgent. He left with obvious reluctance, and Clara felt that pull again. The invisible thread connecting them, the awareness that never quite went away. She was in deep trouble, and she knew it. That night, the team went out to celebrate. A bar in Midtown, drinks flowing freely, everyone riding the high of landing a major client. Clara found herself relaxing for the first time in weeks, laughing at Marcus's terrible jokes, talking shop with Samira, feeling like maybe she actually belonged here. Damien showed up an hour in, still in his work clothes, but looking less tense than usual. People congratulated him on the win, but he deflected credit to the team, to Clara specifically. None of this happens without good ideas, he said, raising his glass. To Clara, for bringing exactly what we needed. The team cheered and drank, and Clara felt her face flush with pride and embarrassment and too much wine. She caught Damien's eye across the bar, and the look he gave her made her stomach flip. This was dangerous. Being here, celebrating together, the alcohol lowering everyone's inhibitions. Clara should leave. Should go home before she did something she couldn't take back. But she didn't leave. She stayed and drank and laughed, and when Damien ended up next to her at the bar ordering another round, she didn't move away. "You having fun?" he asked, leaning close to be heard over the noise. "I am, actually. It's nice to celebrate." "You earned it." He handed her a fresh drink. "I'm proud of you, Clara." The words hit harder than they should have. "Thank you." They stood there at the bar, shoulders almost touching, surrounded by people but somehow feeling alone. Clara knew she was playing with fire, knew she should create distance, should remember all the reasons this couldn't happen. But the wine had made her brave, and the success had made her reckless, and when Damien's hand brushed hers on the bar top, she didn't pull away. "We should talk," Damien said quietly. "About what?" "About the fact that I can't stop thinking about you." Clara's breath caught. "Damien, I know all the reasons this is a bad idea, but I need you to know it's not just me, right? This tension, this thing between us, you feel it too?" She should lie. Should tell him he was imagining things, that they were just colleagues and nothing more. But Clara was so tired of pretending. "I feel it," she admitted. Damien's jaw tightened. "What are we going to do about it?" "Nothing. We agreed to boundaries, to keeping this professional. And how's that working for you?" "Terribly," Clara said honestly. "But that doesn't change reality. You're my boss. I just started this job. Getting involved would be complicated. I know." Damien ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I just needed to hear you say it, that I'm not crazy." "You're not crazy." They stood there in the loud bar, having a quiet conversation that felt more intimate than anything Clara had experienced in years. Around them, their coworkers laughed and drank and celebrated, oblivious to the moment happening right in front of them. "I should go," Damien said finally. "Early morning with Leo tomorrow." "Right, of course." But he didn't move. Neither did Clara. They just stood there, close enough to touch, both knowing they shouldn't, but neither quite able to walk away. "Clara?" Whatever he was about to say got interrupted by Marcus stumbling over, drunk and happy. "Boss, man! You're not leaving already, are you?" The moment shattered. Damien stepped back, professional mask sliding into place. "Yeah, early day tomorrow, but you all keep celebrating. You earned it." He left without looking at Clara again, and she watched him go, feeling the loss like a physical thing. "You okay?" Samira appeared at her elbow. "Fine, just tired." "You sure? Because you and Wolf were having a pretty intense conversation over here." Clara's heart jumped. "It wasn't. We were just talking about the pitch." Samira gave her a knowing look. "Sure, and I'm the Queen of England." "Samira, relax. I'm not going to say anything, but be careful, okay? Office romances are tricky, and when one person has power over the other..." She trailed off meaningfully. "There's no romance," Clara said firmly. "Just work." "If you say so." But as Clara left this bar an hour later, heading home alone through the New York night, she knew she was lying to herself. There was something between her and Damien, something that went way beyond professional respect or workplace attraction, something real and terrifying and completely impossible. The next few weeks fell into a new rhythm. The hotel campaign moved into production, which meant long hours in creative reviews, photo shoots, and endless revisions. Clara threw herself into the work, partly because she loved it, and partly because staying busy kept her from overthinking the Damien situation. They'd both pulled back after the bar conversation, maintaining even more careful distance than before. Their interactions were brief, professional, always in the presence of others. Clara told herself it was for the best, that the boundaries were protecting both of them. But late at night, alone in her apartment, she couldn't stop thinking about him. About the way he looked at her when he thought no one was watching. About the careful control in his voice when he spoke to her. About that kiss in the rain that had started everything. She was falling for him, and there wasn't a damn thing she could do about it except try to hide it. One afternoon, Clara was in the break room making coffee when Philip cornered her. She'd managed to mostly avoid him since the pitch, but apparently her luck had run out. "Congratulations on the hotel account," he said, but his tone suggested otherwise. "Thanks. Must be nice having Wolf's favor." Clara turned to face him fully. "What's that supposed to mean? Just that you got here a month ago and you're already leading major pitches. Makes people wonder how you managed that so fast." The implication was clear, and it made Clara's blood boil. "I got the pitch because my concept was better. That's how creative work works." Philip smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Sure. Whatever you need to tell yourself." "What's your problem with me?" "No problem. I just think it's interesting how Wolf suddenly has so much faith in someone so inexperienced. Makes you wonder what else is going on." Clara's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to throw her coffee in his face, wanted to tell him exactly where he could shove his insinuations, but causing a scene would only make things worse. "You're way off base," she said coldly, "and if you have a problem with how I got the pitch, take it up with Damien. He's the one who made the call." She pushed past him and headed back to her desk, shaking with anger. It was one thing to know people might talk, another to have someone actively trying to undermine her credibility. And the worst part was that Philip had hit on her deepest fear, that people would think she'd gotten ahead because of something other than her work. "Hey." Samira appeared at her desk, concerned. "You okay? You look upset." "I'm fine, just Philip being Philip." "What did he say?" Clara hesitated, then told her. Samira's expression darkened. "He's threatened," she said. "You're talented and you're making him look bad, so he's trying to drag you down." "By implying I'm sleeping with Damien?" "He didn't actually say that." "He didn't have to." Samira leaned against Clara's desk. "You want my advice? Ignore him. Keep doing good work. Philip's been here 4 years and hasn't led a pitch half as successful as yours. That speaks for itself." Clara knew Samira was right, but the anger still simmered. She hated that Philip could plant that seed of doubt, hated that now she'd be wondering if other people thought the same thing. That night, she stayed late again, partly to work and partly to avoid going home to an empty apartment where she'd just spiral. She was deep into reviewing production estimates when a knock on her desk made her jump. Damien stood there, jacket off, looking concerned. "Can we talk? In my office?" Clara's stomach dropped. Had Philip gone to him? Had someone else said something? "Sure." She followed him down the hall, anxiety building with every step. His office door closed behind them, and Damien gestured for her to sit. "I heard about what happened with Philip today," he said. "From who?" "Samira came to me. Said he was making inappropriate insinuations about why you got the hotel pitch." Clara's face burned. "I can handle Philip." "I'm sure you can, but you shouldn't have to." Damien leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "I'm having HR document this. If he makes any more comments, we'll take formal action. That'll just make it worse, make it look like I need special protection. You don't need protection, but I won't tolerate someone undermining your work because of his own insecurities." Clara stood up, pacing to the window. "You realize this is exactly what he was implying, right? That you're giving me preferential treatment." "I'm not." "I know that. You know that. But other people are going to wonder, especially if you go to bat for me against someone who's been here 4 years. Damien was quiet for a moment. "So what do you want me to do?" "Ignore it." "I want you to let me handle my own battles. I can't build credibility here if people think I'm hiding behind you." "You're not hiding behind anyone. You earned that pitch." "I know I did." The frustration bubbled over. "But now I have to prove it to everyone else. And you defending me, protecting me, it just feeds into exactly what Philip was suggesting." "Which is what?" Damien's voice had gone cold. That we're involved? The word hung between them, heavy and dangerous. Yes, Clara said quietly. We're not involved. I know. Then what's the problem? Clara turned to face him. The problem is that there's enough truth in the insinuation to make it stick. We have history, Damien. We kissed before I even started here. And now there's this tension between us that anyone paying attention can probably see. No one knows about the kiss. They don't need to know. They can feel it. The way you look at me sometimes, the way we avoid being alone together, all of it, it adds up. Damien pushed off from the desk, closing the distance between them. And what do you suggest? We can't exactly erase what happened. No, but we can be more careful, more professional. We are professional. Are we? Clara challenged. Because right now, alone in your office, all I can think about is kissing you again, and that's not professional at all. The admission escaped before she could stop it, and she watched Damien's expression shift, surprise, then heat, then something that looked almost like pain. Clarice, I know all the reasons we can't, but I'm tired of pretending this doesn't exist. Damien took another step closer, and Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. They were too close now, close enough that she could see the war happening behind his eyes. If we cross this line, he said carefully, everything changes. Your career here, my reputation, all of it. Are you really willing to risk that? Clara thought about the hotel pitch, about the work she loved, about the future she was building, and then she thought about the way Damien made her feel, seen, valued, challenged in the best possible way. I don't know, she admitted, but I'm tired of acting like the only thing between us is a professional relationship. What do you want from me? Honesty. Acknowledgement that this is hard for you too. Damien's hand came up to cup her face, gentle and sure, and Clara's breath caught. It's killing me, he said quietly. Every day, watching you, working with you, knowing I can't have you. It's the hardest thing I've done in years. Then why are we fighting it? Because I have a son who depends on me making good decisions. Because you have a career that's just getting started. Because mixing this up with feelings and attraction and all the messy human stuff never ends well. Or maybe, Clara whispered, it ends exactly where it's supposed to. They stood there, his hand on her face, her heart in her throat, both of them on the edge of something they couldn't take back. Clara knew she should step away, should leave before they did something that complicated everything. But she was so tired of playing it safe. Damien seemed to come to the same conclusion at the same moment. He leaned down, and Clara rose up to meet him. And then they were kissing again. Not in the rain this time, but in his office with the door closed and all their careful control finally shattering. It was different from the first kiss. Less desperate, more certain, like coming home to something you didn't know you'd been missing. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back in. This is a terrible idea, Damien said, but he didn't let go of her. I know. We're going to have to be so careful. I know. And if this blows up, it could destroy everything we've both worked for. Clara met his eyes. Are you trying to talk yourself out of this or into it? Damien smiled, a real smile that transformed his whole face. I have no idea. They stood there for another moment, holding each other, both knowing they'd just crossed a line they couldn't uncross. Clara felt the fear and excitement and possibility all tangled together in her chest. What happens now? She asked. Now, Damien said slowly, we figure out how to do this without destroying our lives in the process. It wasn't a perfect answer. It wasn't even a particularly reassuring one, but it was honest, and Clara found herself nodding. Okay. She left his office a few minutes later, her lips still tingling, her mind racing through all the possible consequences of what they'd just started. She knew this was risky, knew that office romances, especially ones with power dynamics, rarely ended well. But for the first time in months, Clara felt like she was choosing something she actually wanted instead of just surviving. And that had to count for something. The weekend after the kiss felt impossibly long. Clara spent Saturday reorganizing her apartment, doing laundry she'd been ignoring for weeks, anything to keep her hands busy and her mind from spiraling. Sunday, she met Jenna for the brunch she'd promised, trying to act normal while her best friend asked questions Clara couldn't quite answer. You're different, Jenna said over mimosas. I can't put my finger on it, but something's changed. I'm just busy with work. It's more than that. You're glowing. Are you seeing someone? Clara nearly choked on her drink. What? No, definitely not. Jenna's eyes narrowed. You're a terrible liar. Who is he? There's no one, I swear. The lie tasted bitter, but what was she supposed to say? That she'd started something completely inappropriate with her billionaire boss who had a 7-year-old son and enough baggage to fill a warehouse? Fine, keep your secrets, Jenna said, but she was smiling. Just promise me he's good to you, whoever he is. Clara thought about Damien's hand on her face, the careful way he'd kissed her, the vulnerability in his voice when he'd admitted how hard it was to stay away. He's complicated. The good ones usually are. Monday morning arrived with the weight of reality. Clara got to the office early, trying to center herself before facing whatever came next. She had no idea what the protocol was for showing up to work after kissing your boss. Did they pretend nothing happened, acknowledge it, set ground rules? Her phone buzzed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. It's Damien. Can we talk before the team gets in? My office. Clara's stomach flipped. She saved the number, took a breath, and headed down the hall. Damien's office door was cracked open, and she could see him standing by the window, coffee in hand, looking tense. Hey, she said, stepping inside and closing the door. He turned, and for a moment they just looked at each other. Then Damien set his coffee down and crossed the room, pulling her into a kiss that felt like relief and apology wrapped together. When they broke apart, Clara was breathless. I thought we were going to talk. We are. But I needed to do that first. Damien stepped back, running a hand through his hair. I spent the whole weekend thinking about this. About us. About how to make it work. And I don't have all the answers. But I know I want to try. Clara felt warmth spread through her chest. Me too. There have to be rules, though. Boundaries at work. Okay. Damien moved to his desk, pulling out a notepad like he was preparing for a business meeting. It should have been ridiculous, but somehow it was endearing. This powerful, controlled man trying to organize his feelings into a manageable plan. No public displays of affection at work, he said. No preferential treatment in assignments or reviews. And we keep this completely separate from the office until we figure out if it's actually going somewhere. How do we know if it's going somewhere if we're keeping it separate? We see each other outside of work. Real dates, real conversations, getting to know each other without the professional complications. Clara leaned against the door. What about your son? Damien's expression softened. Leo's the most important person in my life. If this gets serious, he'll need to be part of the conversation. But not yet. Not until we know what this is. That makes sense. And if anyone at work finds out before we're ready, it could get messy. For both of us. But especially you. I know. I'm serious, Clara. You're building something here. I won't let this derail your career. The protectiveness in his voice made her chest tight. What about your career? You have just as much to lose. I own the agency. The stakes are different. They're still stakes. Damien crossed back to her, cupping her face gently. I've spent the last 5 years putting everyone else first. Leo, the business, my clients. And I don't regret any of it. But for once, I want something for myself. Even if it's complicated. Even if it's risky. Clara turned her head to kiss his palm. When can I see you, outside of work? Tomorrow night? I can get my mother to watch Leo. Tomorrow's perfect. They heard voices in the hallway, early arrivals filtering in. Damien dropped his hand and stepped back, professional distance restored so quickly it gave Clara whiplash. We should get to work, he said, his tone completely neutral now. Right. Yes. Clara left his office feeling like she'd just stepped out of one reality and into another. At work, they were boss and employee, nothing more. But outside these walls, they were something else entirely. Something she didn't have a name for yet, but desperately wanted to explore. The day dragged with the weight of anticipation. Clara threw herself into the hotel campaign revisions, attended meetings, responded to emails, all while hyper-aware of Damien's presence across the office. Every time their eyes met, she felt that pull. The secret knowledge that something had shifted between them. At lunch, Samira cornered her in the break room. Okay, what's going on with you? Clara's heart jumped. What do you mean? You've been weird all morning, distracted, and you keep looking at Wolf's office. I do not. You absolutely do. Samira lowered her voice. Did something happen? Clara wanted to tell her. Wanted to share this confusing, exciting thing with someone who might understand, but the risk felt too big, the secret too new. Nothing happened. I'm just stressed about the campaign. Samira didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. Fine. But if you need to talk, I'm here. No judgment. Thanks. I appreciate that. The rest of the day passed in a blur of work and stolen glances. By the time 6 o'clock rolled around, Clara was exhausted from the effort of acting normal. She packed up her things, ready to escape to her apartment where she could stop pretending. Her phone buzzed as she reached the elevator. Can't stop thinking about tomorrow night. Clara smiled despite herself, typing back quickly. Me neither. Also can't stop thinking about kissing you in my office this morning. Damien, we're supposed to be professional at work. I know. Just wanted you to know what I'm thinking about while being professional. Clara laughed, shaking her head. This man was going to drive her crazy. Tuesday felt like it lasted 3 days. Clara changed her outfit 4 times before settling on jeans and a simple black sweater. Nice enough for a date, but not trying too hard. She'd suggested they meet somewhere outside Manhattan to avoid running into anyone from work, and Damien had picked a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn that apparently had the best carbonara in the city. Clara arrived first, nerves making her hands shake as she checked her reflection in her phone screen. This was ridiculous. She'd already kissed him twice. But somehow a planned date felt more significant, more real than stolen moments in offices and rainy rooftops. Damien walked in 10 minutes later, and Clara's breath caught. He was in dark jeans and a gray Henley, no suit, no tie, looking younger and more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. When he spotted her in the corner booth, his whole face lit up. Sorry I'm late, he said, sliding in across from her. Leo needed help with homework, and the dinosaur facts were more complicated than I remembered. What kind of dinosaur facts? Apparently the velociraptor was actually the size of a turkey and had feathers, which completely destroyed his mental image from that movie. He was devastated. Clara laughed. Poor kid. I know. The truth is so disappointing sometimes. They ordered wine and pasta, and the conversation flowed easier than Clara expected. Without the pressure of work, without the careful professional distance. They were just 2 people getting to know each other. Damien told her about building the agency from nothing, about the early days when he was working from a tiny apartment with a laptop and a dream. Clara shared stories about her chaotic family, about growing up with 3 brothers who still treated her like she was 12. So that's why you're so good at standing your ground, Damien said. You had to fight for everything growing up. Pretty much. Being the only girl with 3 older brothers teaches you to speak up or get steamrolled. Explains why you weren't intimidated by Philip. Oh, I was intimidated. I just didn't let him see it. Damien reached across the table, lacing his fingers through hers. The touch was simple, casual, but it sent warmth spreading through Clara's chest. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Leo's mom. What happened there? Damien's expression clouded slightly. That's a complicated story. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. No, it's fine. You should know. He took a sip of wine, gathering his thoughts. We met young, too young, really. I was 24, building the agency, working insane hours. She was 22, an artist, free-spirited. We were together for 2 years before she got pregnant. Clara stayed quiet, letting him tell it at his own pace. I was terrified, Damien continued, but I wanted to make it work. We got engaged, started planning a future. And then Leo was born, and everything changed. She had severe postpartum depression, couldn't connect with him, couldn't handle the responsibility. I tried to support her, got her help, but it wasn't enough. I'm sorry. When Leo was 2, she left. Just packed her things one day while I was at work and disappeared. I came home to find Leo with the nanny and a note saying she couldn't do it anymore, that she never wanted to be a mother and staying was killing her. Clara squeezed his hand. That must have been devastating. It was. But honestly, the hardest part was watching Leo ask for her for months afterward. He was too young to understand that she wasn't coming back. Damien's voice was raw now. I've spent 5 years making sure he never feels that abandonment again, that he knows he's loved and wanted and enough exactly as he is. You're a good father. I try. Some days I fail spectacularly, but I try. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the restaurant buzzing around them. Clara felt like she understood Damien better now, the control, The careful boundaries, the fear of letting anyone too close. He'd been hurt, and more importantly, he was protecting his son from being hurt again. "Thank you for telling me," Clara said. "Thank you for asking." Damien's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "Your turn. What's your complicated relationship story?" Clara groaned. "You mean Marcus? The ex you were trying to forget when we met?" "That's the one. 2 years of making myself smaller so he could feel bigger. He was always complaining about how his startup wasn't taking off, how he needed support, how hard everything was. And I was the supportive girlfriend, cooking him dinners, listening to him vent, managing his emotional labor while working full-time and trying to build my own career. Sounds exhausting. It was. And the worst part? When he finally dumped me, he acted like I was the one holding him back, like my career ambitions were threatening to his ego. His loss. Clara smiled. I know that now. But at the time, it felt like confirmation of every insecurity I had, that I was too much, too ambitious, too opinionated, too unwilling to make myself convenient. You're not too much, Damien said firmly. You're exactly right, and anyone who can't handle that doesn't deserve you. The conviction in his voice made Clara's throat tight. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're brilliant and stubborn and brave enough to kiss strangers in the rain when you're hurting. I know you work harder than anyone at the agency and still doubt whether you're good enough. I know you make me want to be reckless, which I haven't felt in years. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. Damien, I'm falling for you, Clara. I know it's fast and complicated and probably a disaster waiting to happen, but I need you to know that's where I'm at. She came around to his side of the booth, sliding in next to him, and kissed him right there in the restaurant. It was unprofessional and public and everything they'd agreed not to do at work, but they weren't at work. They were just Clara and Damien, two people trying to figure out if this thing between them was worth the risk. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Damien was smiling. So I take it you feel the same way. I'm terrified, Clara admitted. But yes, I feel the same way. They stayed at the restaurant until closing, talking about everything and nothing, building the foundation of something that felt real and fragile and desperately important. And when Damien walked her to the subway afterward, kissing her goodnight under the streetlights, Clara felt like maybe taking risks wasn't always reckless. Sometimes it was just brave. The next few weeks fell into a careful rhythm. At work, Clara and Damien maintained absolute professionalism. No lingering looks, no private meetings without legitimate reasons, nothing that would raise suspicions. But outside the office, they built something neither of them had expected. Dinners in out-of-the-way restaurants. Late-night phone calls after Leo went to bed. Stolen weekend afternoons in Clara's apartment where they could just exist together without worrying who might see. It was complicated and thrilling and terrifying, sneaking around like teenagers while trying to build actual careers. The hotel campaign launched to critical acclaim. The transformation concept resonated exactly as Clara had hoped, sparking conversations about burnout and self-care and what luxury actually meant. Campaign features appeared in major publications, and Clara's phone started ringing with industry people wanting to know who she was. You're becoming famous, Samira teased one afternoon, showing Clara an article in Ad Age that mentioned her by name. It's weird, Clara admitted. Good weird, but weird. Wolf must be thrilled. This is exactly the kind of press the agency needs. Clara kept her expression neutral. I haven't really talked to him about it. That was mostly true. They'd celebrated privately over takeout in her apartment where Damien had kissed her senseless and told her how proud he was. But at work, he'd only sent a brief congratulatory email, professional and distant. The dual reality was exhausting. Clara loved what they had outside the office, but hiding it at work felt increasingly dishonest. She watched other people freely talk about their weekends, their dates, their relationships, while she had to carefully edit every story to remove any trace of Damien. How long do we keep doing this? She asked one night, curled up on his couch after Leo had gone to bed. Damien's arm tightened around her. Doing what? Hiding. Pretending we barely know each other at work while building something real everywhere else. I don't know. Until we're sure it's going to last? Clara sat up to look at him. And how do we know if it's going to last if we're keeping it in a box? What are you saying? I'm saying that I want this, us, but I also want to be able to tell my friends I'm seeing someone. Want to not have a heart attack every time someone at work asks about my weekend. She paused. I want to meet Leo. Damien went very still. Clara, I know it's soon. I know you're protective of him. But if this is serious and you said you're falling for me, then eventually he's going to be part of the equation. He's 7. If I introduce him to someone and it doesn't work out, that's another person who left. I can't do that to him. So what? We just keep hiding until you're absolutely certain? That could take months, years. I need to be careful. I get that. But I need to know this is going somewhere. That we're not just playing house in the margins of your real life. The tension between them was thick now, the first real fight they'd had. Damien stood up, pacing to the window. My life is complicated, Clara. I have responsibilities. I can't just introduce every woman I date to my son. Every woman? Clara's voice went sharp. Is that what I am? Just another woman you're dating? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Damien turned to face her. I meant that I have to put Leo first. Always. And right now, keeping you separate keeps him safe. Safe from what? From having someone else in his life who cares about him? Safe from getting attached to someone who might not stay. The words hung between them, and Clara felt the hurt settle deep in her chest. You think I'm not going to stay? I don't know. We've been together 2 months. That's not long enough to know anything. Clara stood, grabbing her bag. Right. Well, let me know when it's been long enough. When I've proven myself sufficiently. Clara, don't leave. I didn't mean... You did mean it, and that's fine. You're protecting your son. I get it, but I can't keep being the secret you're ashamed of. I'm not ashamed of you. Then what are you? Damien looked at her, and Clara saw the war happening behind his eyes. Fear and desire and all the complicated feelings of someone who'd been hurt before. I'm terrified, he said finally. I'm terrified that I'm falling for you too fast. That I'm going to screw this up and hurt you and hurt Leo and destroy everything I've built. I'm terrified that letting you in means losing control, and control is the only thing that's kept me functioning for the last 5 years. Clara's anger softened into something sadder. I can't be with someone who won't let me in, Damien, who keeps me at arm's length because it feels safer. I know, you're right. He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. Just give me time to figure out how to do this right. How much time? I don't know. Clara nodded, tears threatening. Okay. Well, call me when you figure it out. She left before he could stop her, taking the subway back to her apartment with her chest aching. This was the problem with falling for someone emotionally unavailable. You ended up doing all the emotional labor while they decided whether you were worth the risk. The next day at work was torture. Clara avoided Damien's office, buried herself in projects, and tried not to think about the fight. But by 3 o'clock, her phone buzzed with a text. Can we talk? Please. Clara stared at the message, torn between responding and maintaining her dignity. Finally, she typed back. Not here. After work. My place? Leo's at a friend's house until 6. Fine. The rest of the day dragged. When Clara finally made it to Damien's apartment in Tribeca, the first time she'd been there in daylight, he looked as wrecked as she felt. I'm sorry, he said immediately. For last night. For making you feel like a secret. Clara crossed her arms. But I need you to understand where I'm coming from. Leo's been hurt before. His mother left, and it took years for him to stop asking about her. I can't bring someone into his life unless I'm absolutely sure they're staying. And you're not sure about me. I'm sure about how I feel. I'm just not sure about the future. About whether we can make this work with all the complications. Clara felt the frustration build again. Life is complicated, Damien. Relationships are messy. You can't control everything just because you're scared. I know that intellectually, but knowing it and feeling safe enough to act on it are different things. They stood in his living room, the afternoon light streaming through the windows, and Clara made a decision. She could keep pushing, keep demanding he let her in faster than he was ready for. Or she could meet him where he was and trust that he'd get there eventually. Okay, she said finally. I'll wait, but not indefinitely. At some point, you're going to have to decide if I'm worth the risk. Damien crossed to her, cupping her face in both hands. You are worth the risk. You're worth everything. I just need to figure out how to do this without destroying the other parts of my life I'm responsible for. Clara kissed him, soft and sad. I want to meet him, Damien. When you're ready, I want to know the most important person in your life. I want that too, just not yet. When? Soon. I promise. They spent the rest of the afternoon together, talking through the hard stuff, making tentative plans for how to navigate the complications. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And Clara had to believe that was enough for now. 2 weeks later, Philip made his move. Clara was in the break room when she overheard him talking to someone from accounting, his voice just loud enough to carry. I'm just saying, it's interesting how quickly Hayes climbed the ladder. Makes you wonder what she's really good at. The implication was clear and Clara's blood boiled. She marched over, done with letting him get away with this. You have something to say to me, Philip? Say it to my face. He turned, smirking. Just making observations. Observations about what? My work? Because the hotel campaign speaks for itself. Does it? Or does it speak to how much Wolf likes you? The break room went quiet. Several people were watching now, sensing drama. You're implying I slept my way into this job? Clara kept her voice steady despite the rage coursing through her. I'm not implying anything. I'm just pointing out facts. The fact is that my concept was better than yours. That's why I got the pitch, not because of anything else. Philip stepped closer, his voice dropping. Everyone knows Wolf has a thing for you, the way he looks at you, the preferential treatment. It's obvious. Clara's heart hammered, but she refused to back down. Take that to HR if you have a problem. Otherwise, stop spreading rumors about my professional competence based on your hurt ego. She walked out before he could respond, shaking with adrenaline. But she knew the damage was done. Philip had said out loud what some people were probably already thinking, and now the rumor would spread. Within an hour, Samira appeared at her desk. I heard what happened with Philip. I'm sure everyone heard. For what it's worth, nobody believes him. Everyone knows you earned that pitch. Do they? Samira hesitated. Most people. But Clara, there is talk about you and Wolf. The way you two avoid each other sometimes. It's almost more suspicious than if you were friendly. Clara's stomach dropped. There's nothing going on. I'm not saying there is. I'm just saying people notice things. And with Philip stirring the pot, you might want to be extra careful. After Samira left, Clara sat at her desk trying not to panic. This was exactly what they'd been afraid of. The rumors, the speculation, the threat to her credibility. And now it was happening, regardless of how careful they'd been. Her phone buzzed. My office. Now. Clara took a breath and headed down the hall. Damien's expression was thunderous when she entered. I heard about Philip, he said the moment she closed the door. It's fine, I handled it. It's not fine. He's creating a hostile work environment. And if you go after him again, it'll just prove his point, that I need you to fight my battles. Damien's jaw clenched. So what do you suggest? I suggest we be even more careful. No private meetings unless absolutely necessary. No texts during work hours. Nothing that could be misconstrued. We're already being careful. Not careful enough if people are talking. They stared at each other, the frustration and fear and impossibility of the situation hanging between them. Clara wanted to go to him, to have him hold her and tell her everything would be okay, but they were at work, and that wasn't allowed. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Damien said quietly. That being with me would hurt your career. My career is fine. Philip's just bitter. But what happens when it's not just Philip? When other people start wondering? When clients hear the rumors and question whether you got the account on merit? Clara felt tears threaten but pushed them back. Are you saying we should end this? I'm saying maybe I should recuse myself from projects you're on, get someone else to review your work, assign you to different teams. That's almost worse. It looks like you're punishing me. Then what do you want me to do? Clara's frustration boiled over. I want you to stop being so terrified of everything going wrong that you can't see what's going right. I want you to trust that I can handle my own career and my own reputation. And I want you to decide if I'm worth fighting for instead of constantly looking for exits. Damien flinched. That's not fair, isn't it? Every time things get hard, you pull back. Every time someone questions us, you want to end it. I'm tired of being the one fighting to make this work while you hedge your bets. I have a son. I know you have a son. You keep using him as an excuse to not let me in, but at some point that stops being protection and starts being cowardice. The words came out harsher than Clara intended, and she watched Damien's expression shudder completely. Get out, he said, his voice cold. Damien, I said get out. We'll discuss your assignments tomorrow, professionally. Clara left, her hands shaking, tears finally spilling over as she grabbed her bag and fled the office. She'd pushed too hard, said things she shouldn't have. But underneath the regret, she still felt that core of truth. Damien was so afraid of being hurt again that he was sabotaging the one good thing he'd let himself have in years. And Clara didn't know if she had the strength to keep fighting for someone who wouldn't fight for himself. Clara didn't sleep that night. She lay in her apartment staring at the ceiling, replaying the fight over and over, wincing at the cruel edge in her voice when she'd called him a coward. That word had been designed to hurt, and she'd seen it land exactly as intended. Her phone stayed silent. No apologetic texts, no late-night calls, nothing. The silence felt worse than anger. By morning, Clara had resolved to apologize. Whatever happened between them personally, she still had to work at Wolf Creative, still had to maintain some kind of professional relationship with Damien. She couldn't let pride destroy everything she'd built. She got to the office early, hoping to catch him before the team arrived. But when she knocked on his door at 7:30, there was no answer. His office was dark, desk empty. "He's not in yet," Marcus said, appearing with coffee. "Called in this morning and said he'd be working from home today. First time in like 2 years." Clara's chest tightened. "Did he say why?" "Nope. Just that we should handle things without him." Marcus studied her face. "You okay? You look exhausted." "Just didn't sleep well." "Join the club. Philip's been spreading rumors since yesterday, and it's making everyone tense." Clara's stomach dropped. "What kind of rumors?" Marcus lowered his voice. "That you and Wolf are involved. That's why you got the hotel pitch. I told him he was full of it, but you know how office gossip works." "Right. Yeah." Clara tried to keep her voice steady. "People will believe what they want to believe. For what it's worth, I don't think anyone who actually knows you believes it. Your work speaks for itself." But as the day progressed, Clara felt the shift. Subtle looks from colleagues, conversations that stopped when she approached, the weight of speculation following her through the office. It didn't matter that the rumors weren't entirely accurate. They were close enough to make her paranoid about every interaction. Samira found her at lunch, sitting alone in the conference room. "This is bad," Samira said without preamble. "Philip's really done a number." "I know. HR wants to talk to you, 3 o'clock. Clara's heart sank. "About what?" "The hostile work environment complaint you filed would be my guess, but also probably about the rumors. They have to investigate anything that could be workplace harassment or inappropriate relationships." "There's no inappropriate relationship." Samira gave her a long look. "Clara, I'm your friend. You can tell me the truth." Clara wanted to spill everything. The kiss at the party, the months of sneaking around, the fights and the feelings and the impossible situation they'd created. But admitting it would make it real, would confirm what everyone suspected. "There's nothing to tell," she said quietly. The HR meeting was exactly as uncomfortable as Clara feared. 2 representatives asked careful questions about her relationship with Damien, about the hotel pitch assignment, about whether she felt pressured or coerced in any way. Clara answered honestly. Damien had never used his position inappropriately, had never promised her anything in exchange for favors, had treated her with complete professionalism. All of which was technically true, even if it left out the most important parts. "We've also received complaints about Philip Carter making inappropriate comments about you," the older HR rep said. "Can you tell us about those incidents?" Claire recounted the break room confrontation, the earlier dismissiveness in meetings, the pattern of undermining her credibility. As she talked, she realized how much she'd tolerated, how many small cuts she'd accepted as the price of proving herself. "We take these complaints very seriously," the rep said. "We'll be conducting a full investigation and meeting with Mr. Carter as well. In the meantime, you'll be reassigned to projects that don't involve him." "What about projects that involve Damien Wolf?" The 2 reps exchanged glances. "Are you requesting to be removed from Mr. Wolf's direct supervision?" Clara thought about it. Removing herself would look like confirmation of the rumors, but staying close to him while maintaining professional distance was becoming impossible. "No," she said finally, "I'm not requesting that." When she left HR, her phone buzzed with a text from Damien. "Can you come by tonight? We need to talk." Clara stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. Part of her wanted to refuse, to make him sweat the way she'd been sweating all day. but a bigger part just wanted to see him, to figure out if they could salvage anything from the wreckage. Okay, what time? 7. Leo will be asleep by then. The hours until 7 crawled by. Clara left work at 5:30, went home to change and try to calm her nerves, then took the subway to Tribeca with her heart in her throat. Damien answered the door looking wrecked, hair disheveled, still in rumpled clothes from yesterday, dark circles under his eyes. He'd clearly had as rough a night as she had. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hey." They stood in the doorway for an awkward moment before Damien stepped aside to let her in. The apartment was quiet, toys scattered across the living room floor, evidence of Leo everywhere. Clara had never been here when his son was home, and the reminder of that whole part of Damien's life she wasn't allowed into stung fresh. "I'm sorry," they both said at the same time. Despite everything, Clara almost smiled. "You first." Damien ran a hand through his hair. "I shouldn't have told you to get out. Shouldn't have shut down like that. You were right. I do pull back when things get hard. It's a defense mechanism, and it's not fair to you. I shouldn't have called you a coward. That was cruel. It was also accurate." Damien moved to the couch, sinking down like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. "I'm a coward when it comes to this. To us. I've spent 5 years building walls to protect Leo and myself, and letting you in means tearing some of those down. That terrifies me." Clara sat beside him, careful to leave space between them. "I know I'm asking a lot, wanting to meet Leo, wanting more than just secret dates, but I can't keep being the person you hide. I don't want to hide you, but the rumors at work, the HR investigation, all of it, it proves that people are watching, and if we confirm what they suspect, it destroys your credibility. My credibility is already damaged. Philip made sure of that." Damien's jaw tightened. "I want to fire him." "You can't. It'll look like retaliation and just make everything worse." "Then what do we do?" Clara took a breath, voicing the thought that had been circling her mind all day. "Maybe we should actually end this. Not because we want to, but because it's the smart thing to do." Damien turned to look at her, pain written across his face. "Is that what you want?" "No, but I don't know how to make this work. The secrecy is killing me. The rumors are destroying my reputation. And you're not ready to let me fully into your life. Maybe we're just wrong timing. Or maybe we're just scared. Aren't those the same thing?" Damien reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together. "I don't want to lose you, Clara. These last few months, even with all the complications, have been the happiest I've been in years. You make me want things I thought I'd given up on." "Like what?" "Like partnership. Like someone who challenges me and sees through my bullshit and makes me want to be braver. Like maybe not doing this whole life thing alone." Clara felt tears threaten. "I want those things too, but I can't be the only one fighting for them." "You're not. I'm just fighting badly." Damien squeezed her hand. "Let me try to do better. Let me figure out how to let you in without blowing up both our lives in the process." "How?" "I don't know yet, but I know giving up isn't the answer." They sat in silence for a moment, hands clasped, both exhausted from fighting and hiding and trying to protect things that maybe didn't need quite so much protection. "I met with HR today," Clara said finally. "They asked about us." "What did you tell them?" "The truth, that you've never treated me with anything but professionalism, that the rumors are just rumors." "And they believed you?" "I think so, but they're investigating Philip too. This whole thing is a mess." Damien pulled her closer, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "I'm sorry this is affecting your career. That's the last thing I wanted." "It's not just your fault. We both made choices." "Bad choices?" Clara leaned into him, breathing in his familiar scent. "I don't know. Ask me when we know how it ends." They stayed like that for a while, holding each other in the quiet apartment, and Clara felt some of the tension ease. They hadn't solved anything, hadn't fixed the fundamental problems, but they'd stopped running from the conversation, and that felt like progress. "Can I show you something?" Damien asked eventually. "Sure." He led her down the hall to a closed door covered in stickers, dinosaurs and spaceships and cartoon characters. Leo's room. Damien opened it carefully, and Clara peered inside to see a small figure buried under superhero blankets, dark hair splayed across the pillow. "He looks like you," Clara whispered. "Poor kid." But Damien's voice was soft with affection. "He's the best thing I ever made. The only thing I'm absolutely sure I got right. Clara watched Damien watch his son, saw the fierce protectiveness and overwhelming love written across his face, and understood exactly why he was so careful. This wasn't just about protecting himself from hurt. It was about protecting this small person who depended on him completely. I get it now, she said quietly. Why you're so scared. Yeah? He's your whole world. Of course you don't want to risk disrupting that. Damien closed the door softly, leading Clara back to the living room. He is my whole world, but there's room for more. I just have to figure out how to make that expansion without everything collapsing. What if we took it slow, really slow? Start with me being around sometimes, just as a colleague or friend. Let him get used to me before there's any pressure. You'd be okay with that? Pretending to just be my friend? If it means eventually being more, yes. Damien cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. You're more patient than I deserve. Probably. But I'm choosing to be here anyway. He kissed her then, soft and grateful and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Clara felt something settle in her chest. Not resolution exactly, but at least direction. The next few weeks were strange. At work, Clara and Damien maintained even stricter boundaries, hyper-aware of the eyes watching them. The HR investigation into Philip dragged on, creating a tense atmosphere where everyone walked on eggshells. Clara threw herself into new projects, determined to prove her worth had nothing to do with who she might or might not be involved with. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, things with Damien began to shift. He started mentioning Leo more in their conversations, sharing stories and frustrations and small victories. Clara learned that Leo hated broccoli but loved carrots, that he was obsessed with a book series about dragons, that he'd recently lost his first tooth and been devastated the tooth fairy only left $2. Inflation, Damien had explained with a straight face. Even magical creatures have to deal with economic realities. One Saturday afternoon, 3 weeks after the big fight, Damien called her. Hey, weird question. Are you busy right now? Clara looked around her apartment, where she'd been marathoning a cooking show and avoiding her laundry. Not particularly. Why? Leo's birthday party got canceled. Half the kids came down with something, and he's devastated. I was going to take him to the Natural History Museum to cheer him up, but he just asked if he could bring a friend, and all his friends are sick. Clara's heart started racing. Are you asking what I think you're asking? Would you want to come? As a friend from work who happens to like dinosaurs, I know nothing about dinosaurs. Even better, Leo loves teaching people dinosaur facts. It's his favorite thing. Clara stood up, already moving toward her closet. When? An hour? I can pick you up. Text me the address. I'll meet you there. She spent the next hour panicking about what to wear to meet a 7-year-old, finally settling on jeans and a comfortable sweater. This wasn't a date. This was meeting the most important person in Damien's life, while pretending to be just a friendly colleague. No pressure at all. Damien and Leo were waiting outside the museum when Clara arrived. Leo was small for 7, with his father's dark hair and a gap-toothed smile that immediately disarmed her. Hi, Clara said, crouching down to his level. You must be Leo. Are you my dad's friend from work? Leo asked, studying her with serious eyes. I am. Your dad thought I might want to learn about dinosaurs. Leo's whole face lit up. Do you know about the Giganotosaurus? I don't think I do. It was even bigger than T-Rex. Come on, I'll show you. He grabbed Clara's hand without hesitation, dragging her toward the entrance while chattering about carnivores and herbivores in the Cretaceous period. Clara glanced back at Damien, who was watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read, hope and fear mixed together. The afternoon was simultaneously wonderful and terrifying. Leo was funny and bright and had absolutely no filter, asking Clara questions ranging from, do you have kids, to why is your hair so curly, to do you have a boyfriend? That last one made both adults freeze. No boyfriend, Clara said carefully, just work and friends. My dad doesn't have a girlfriend either. He says he's too busy with me and work. Your dad's probably right about that. They wandered through the dinosaur halls, Leo providing running commentary on every exhibit, while Damien hung back, letting them build their own rapport. Clara found herself genuinely charmed by the kid. His enthusiasm was infectious, his questions intelligent, his complete lack of self-consciousness refreshing. At the gift shop, Leo became fixated on a stuffed stegosaurus that cost way too much. Maybe for your birthday, Damien suggested. But my birthday party got canceled. Leo's lower lip trembled. This is the worst birthday ever. Clara made a split-second decision. What if we made it better? We could get pizza and ice cream and celebrate right now. Leo's eyes went wide. Really? Damien looked uncertain. Clara, you don't have to. I want to, if that's okay with you. Something shifted in Damien's expression, walls coming down just a fraction. Yeah, that's okay with me. They ended up at a pizza place in the West Village, Leo wedged between them in the booth, still talking about dinosaurs between bites. The normalcy of it hit Clara hard, sitting with Damien and his son, sharing a meal, feeling like maybe they could be something resembling a family. Thank you for coming, Leo said suddenly, looking at Clara with those serious eyes. This is way better than my party would have been. Those kids don't know what they're missing, Clara said, ruffling his hair. After pizza, they got ice cream and walked through Washington Square Park. Leo ran ahead, climbing on benches and chasing pigeons, while Clara and Damien trailed behind. He likes you, Damien said quietly. I like him. He's a good kid. He is. And this, you being here with us, it feels right. I didn't think it would, but it does. Clara's chest felt tight. Yeah? Yeah. Damien reached for her hand, hidden from Leo's view behind their bodies. I'm sorry it took me so long to get here. Worth the wait. They watched Leo discover a street performer doing magic tricks, his delighted laughter carrying across the park. And Clara thought that maybe, just maybe, they were figuring it out. The following Monday, everything changed. Clara was in a creative review when Marcus burst in, looking panicked. We have a problem. The hotel chain just called. They're pulling the campaign. The room went silent. Clara felt her stomach drop. What? Why? Apparently someone sent them screenshots of Philip's allegations. About you and Wolf. They're concerned about the agency's professional ethics and want to rethink the partnership. Clara stood up so fast her chair tipped over. Where's Damien? On a call with them now, but Clara, this is bad. Really bad. She didn't wait to hear more. She headed straight for Damien's office, bursting through the door to find him at his desk, face pale with fury. I need to call you back, he said into the phone, hanging up. Clara, this is my fault. I'll fix it. It's not your fault. It's Philip's. He sent them edited screenshots, took things out of context, made it look like you got the pitch because we're sleeping together. Are we sleeping together? Damien looked at her, and Clara saw the same question in his eyes that she was asking herself. What were they doing? What had they become? That's not the point, he said finally. It's exactly the point. We've been sneaking around for months, and now it's blowing up in our faces. The client's gone, my reputation is destroyed, and your agency is taking a hit. Maybe everyone was right to question us. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. Clara felt tears threatening but pushed them back. I thought I could handle this, the secrecy, the complications, all of it. But I can't keep fighting for something that's destroying everything else. So what? You're done? Just like that? I don't know. I just know that I can't be the reason your business fails. Can't be the person everyone points to as the example of why you don't mix professional and personal. Damien stood, moving around the desk. Clara, listen to me. No, you listen. You were right from the beginning. This was a bad idea. We should have kept things professional, should have stuck to the boundaries we set. Instead, we let our feelings complicate everything, and now we're all paying for it. I don't regret us. Maybe you should. Clara left before he could respond, before she broke down completely. She grabbed her things from her desk, ignoring the stares and whispers, and walked out of Wolf Creative with no idea if she'd ever come back. The next 48 hours were a blur. Clara called in sick, stayed in her apartment, and screened calls from Samira and Marcus, and even Damien. She needed space to think, to figure out what the hell she was doing with her life. On Wednesday morning, her phone rang from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Clara Hayes? Speaking. This is Jennifer Chen from the hotel chain. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Clara's heart sank. Here it came, the official termination, the confirmation that her career was over. Of course. I wanted to reach out personally because the screenshots we received were concerning, but after reviewing the actual campaign materials in your work, I have some questions about the allegations. Clara sat up straighter. Okay. Did Damien Wolfe give you preferential treatment in the pitch process? No. He chose my concept because it was the strongest. I'm happy to provide documentation of the entire development process if you need it. And your personal relationship with him. How does that factor into your professional work? Clara took a breath. Time for honesty. Damien and I have feelings for each other, that's true, but those feelings developed after I was already working on the campaign. He's never used his position to pressure me, and I've never used our relationship to advance my career. The work speaks for itself. There was a long pause. I appreciate your honesty. Can I be honest with you? Please. The campaign is brilliant. It's exactly what we needed, and the early metrics are exceeding our expectations. My concern isn't about your talent. It's about the optics of continuing to work with an agency that has internal conflicts affecting professional judgment. I understand, and for what it's worth, I think those concerns are valid. Damien and I made things complicated when they should have stayed simple. What would you do differently? If you could go back? Clara thought about it. I'd be honest from the start. Not sneaking around, not hiding things. Either acknowledge the relationship and deal with the consequences, or keep it purely professional. The middle ground we tried to find just hurt everyone. Jennifer was quiet for another moment. Thank you for your candor. I'll be in touch. The call ended and Clara sat staring at her phone. She'd probably just confirmed everything the client feared, but at least she'd told the truth. That afternoon, her doorbell rang. Clara opened it to find Damien standing there looking exhausted and determined. We need to talk, he said. I don't think... Please, Clara, just hear me out. She let him in, and they stood in her small living room, the space feeling too confined for everything unsaid between them. I met with the client this morning, Damien said. With Jennifer Chen specifically, and I told her everything. Clara's eyes widened. Everything? About the party, the kiss, how we tried to keep things professional and failed. About my feelings for you and how those feelings have nothing to do with your exceptional work. About how we've been trying to do the right thing while navigating an impossible situation. Damien, why would you... Because I'm done hiding. I'm done letting fear control my decisions. You were right, I was being a coward, and it's cost us too much already. Clara felt tears spill over. The client's pulling the campaign. Your agency is suffering because of me. Jennifer called me after talking to you. She said your honesty impressed her, that most people would have denied everything or made excuses. Damien stepped closer. She's not pulling the campaign. Clara's heart stopped. What? She's keeping it. Said the work is too good to abandon over personal complications. But she wanted assurances that moving forward, we'd handle things with complete transparency. And you agreed? I did. Which means no more hiding, Clara. No more pretending we're just colleagues when we're clearly more than that. Clara wiped at her tears. What about HR? The rumors? Philip? Philip's been fired. HR found evidence he'd been creating a hostile work environment for you and several other women in the office. The investigation was thorough. Damien's expression hardened. He won't be bothering you again. And us? Us is complicated. There are policies about workplace relationships, especially when there's a power dynamic, so I'm giving you a choice. Clara's chest tightened. What kind of choice? You can stay at Wolf Creative and we can keep things professional. No relationship, no complications, just colleagues working together. Or, he paused, and Clara saw vulnerability flash across his face. Or you can leave the agency, and we can actually be together. No more hiding, no more professional entanglements, just us, figuring this out properly. You're asking me to choose between my career and you? I'm asking you to choose what you actually want. Not what's safe or what looks best or what other people expect. What do you want, Clara? She looked at him, this man who'd broken through all her defenses, who'd made her feel seen and challenged and terrified and exhilarated. The man who came with complications and a son and enough baggage to sink a ship. The man she'd fallen for despite every reason not to. I want you, Clara said, and I want my career, and I'm tired of those things being mutually exclusive. Then help me figure out how to have both. Clara moved closer, taking his hands. What if I didn't work directly for you? What if I transferred to a different department or team, so there's no direct power dynamic? Damien considered it. That could work, but you'd still be at the agency. People would still talk. Let them talk. As long as we're transparent and professional, what does it matter? It matters to your reputation, to your credibility. My credibility comes from my work. Anyone who questions that based on who I'm dating isn't someone whose opinion I care about. Clara squeezed his hands. I'm not giving up my career for you, Damien, but I'm also not giving up on us. We just have to find a way to have both. Damien pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. Leo asked about you yesterday. Wanted to know when he'd see you again. What did you tell him? That I was working on it. Damien's voice was rough with emotion. He likes you, Clara, and I more than like you. I'm in love with you, and I'm done being too scared to say it. Clara's breath caught. Say it again. I love you. I love how brave you are, how you call me on my shit, how you made my son smile on what was supposed to be the worst birthday ever. I love that you fight for what you want and don't let anyone make you small. And I'm terrified, but I'm willing to risk everything to build something real with you. I love you too, Clara whispered. Even though you're stubborn and overprotective and terrible at letting people in. I love you anyway. They kissed then, not the desperate kisses in the rain or the office, but something slower, deeper, full of promise and possibility. When they pulled apart, Clara felt like they'd finally turned a corner. So what now? She asked. Now we do this right. I talked to HR about restructuring your reporting line. We're transparent about the relationship, and we take it one day at a time, figuring out how to build something that works for both of us. And Leo? Damien smiled. And Leo, who, by the way, told me yesterday that he hopes you're my girlfriend because you're cool and you know how to climb on museum barriers without getting caught. Clara laughed through her tears. High praise from a 7-year-old. The highest. They spent the rest of the evening talking through logistics, making plans, being honest about fears and hopes and everything in between. It wasn't perfect. Nothing about their situation was perfect. But it was real, and it was theirs. And for the first time in months, Clara felt like they were moving forward instead of in circles. When Damien finally left, kissing her goodnight at the door, Clara stood in her apartment feeling lighter than she had in weeks. They still had obstacles to navigate, conversations to have, professional boundaries to establish. But they were doing it together now. No more hiding, no more half measures. Just two people choosing each other, complications and all. The restructuring happened faster than Clara expected. Within a week, HR had reassigned her to report directly to the agency's COO instead of Damien, eliminating the direct power dynamic while keeping her at Wolf Creative. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was honest, and that mattered more than perfect. The office reaction was mixed. Some people seemed relieved to have the rumors confirmed and dealt with openly. Others whispered and speculated, wondering if Clara's new reporting structure was favoritism disguised as propriety. Clara learned to tune it out, to let her work speak louder than gossip. You're handling this better than I would, Samira said one afternoon, dropping into the chair beside Clara's desk. If people were talking about me like that, I'd lose my mind. They probably are talking about you. People always talk. True, but not about sleeping their way into campaigns. Clara flinched. Is that what they're saying? Some of them, the ones whose opinions don't matter. Samira leaned closer. For what it's worth, I'm glad you two stopped hiding. The sneaking around was painful to watch. You knew? Please, I have eyes. You two looked at each other like nobody else existed in the room. Samira smiled. It's actually kind of sweet. Damien's been locked down so long, I wasn't sure he remembered how to feel things. Clara thought about Damien's confession of love in her apartment, the vulnerability in his voice when he'd admitted being terrified. He feels plenty, he just doesn't show it. Well, he's showing it now. Last week he smiled during a budget meeting. A budget meeting, Clara. That's basically a miracle. The weeks that followed fell into a new rhythm, one that felt more sustainable than the chaos before. Clara proved herself on project after project, her concepts sharp and innovative, her client relationships strong. The hotel campaign continued to perform beyond expectations, earning industry recognition that had nothing to do with who she was dating and everything to do with the quality of her work. Damien backed off from her projects publicly, letting other senior creatives provide feedback and guidance. But privately, they were partners in the truest sense, bouncing ideas off each other over dinner, challenging each other's thinking, pushing each other to be better. And then there was Leo. 3 weeks after the museum trip, Clara came over for what Damien had carefully framed as just dinner with a friend. Leo seemed skeptical of the friend designation. "You're here a lot for just a friend," he observed, watching Clara help set the table. "Is that okay?" Clara asked. Leo considered it with the seriousness only a 7-year-old could muster. "I guess, as long as you're not here to replace my mom." The words hit like a punch. Clara glanced at Damien, who'd gone very still. "I'm not trying to replace anyone," Clara said gently, crouching down to Leo's level. "Your mom is your mom, and nobody can change that. I'm just someone who likes spending time with you and your dad." "Good. Because my mom left and I don't want anyone else to leave." Clara's chest tightened. "Leo, it's okay. I'm used to it now." But his voice was small, uncertain, betraying the hurt underneath. Damien crossed the room, pulling his son into a hug. "Hey, we've talked about this. Your mom leaving wasn't about you. It was about her not being ready to be a parent. But what if Clara's not ready either? What if she decides being around us is too hard?" Clara felt tears prick her eyes. This child had been abandoned once and was terrified it would happen again. And here she was, another adult in his life who could potentially hurt him. "Can I tell you something honest?" Clara asked. Leo nodded, still wrapped in his father's arms. "Being around you guys isn't always easy. Your dad can be stubborn, and sometimes I don't know the right thing to say to you. But that doesn't mean I want to leave. It means I care enough to figure it out, even when it's hard." "Promise?" Clara looked at Damien, saw the hope and fear written across his face, and made a choice. "I promise. I'm not going anywhere." Leo studied her for a long moment, then nodded, apparently satisfied. "Okay. Can we have dinner now? I'm starving." The tension broke, and they ate spaghetti while Leo regaled them with stories about his friend Marcus, who'd eaten paste during art class. But Clara felt the weight of that promise, the responsibility of being someone this child was learning to trust. Later, after Leo went to bed, Clara and Damien sat on the couch with wine and exhaustion. "I'm sorry about that," Damien said. "He's been asking more questions lately about relationships and why I don't date." "What did you tell him?" "That I was waiting for the right person. Someone who'd be good to both of us." Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. "No pressure. You handled it perfectly. The honesty, the promise, that's what he needed to hear." "I meant it. The promise." Damien turned to look at her. "You're sure? Because getting involved with me means getting involved with all of this. The single dad complications, the kid who has abandonment issues, the limited spontaneity. I know what I'm signing up for." "Do you?" "Because it's not just dinner and museum trips. It's school pickups and parent-teacher conferences, and him getting sick at 2 in the morning. It's putting someone else's needs before your own, constantly." Clara sat up, meeting his eyes. "Damien, I'm not some naive 22-year-old who thinks love conquers all. I know relationships are work, I know kids are complicated, but I also know that what we have is worth fighting for. All of it. You, Leo, the messy, complicated family you're building. I just don't want you to wake up in 6 months and realize you made a mistake. The only mistake would be walking away because we're scared of what might go wrong instead of fighting for what could go right." Damien kissed her then, soft and grateful, and Clara felt that certainty settle deeper in her bones. This wasn't going to be easy. But the worthwhile things never were. 2 months later, the hotel campaign won a major industry award. Clara stood on stage accepting the trophy, looking out at a room full of creative professionals, and felt the surreal weight of having actually made it. The struggling woman who'd kissed a stranger at a rooftop party was gone, replaced by someone who'd fought for her place and earned it. Damien was in the audience, clapping with genuine pride, no longer hiding their connection. Leo was at home with his grandmother, probably still awake, even though it was past bedtime, excited to see the shiny trophy Clara had promised to show him. At the after-party, industry people Clara had only read about wanted to talk to her, to hear about her creative process, to offer opportunities. A senior creative director from a competing agency cornered her near the bar. "We're expanding our team," she said. "Looking for someone with your vision. Interested in a conversation?" A year ago, Clara would have jumped at the chance. But now she thought about Wolf Creative, about the team she'd built relationships with, about the projects she was excited to develop. "I'm flattered," Clara said honestly, "but I'm happy where I am." "Even with all the complications? The office politics?" Clara smiled. "Especially with the complications. They're mine, and I've earned them." When she finally made it back to Damien through the crowd, he pulled her aside, away from the noise and congratulations. "I have something to ask you," he said, and Clara's heart jumped before she saw his expression. Nervous, but not proposal nervous. "And before you answer, I need you to know there's no pressure, no expectations." "Okay, now I'm worried. I'm thinking about starting something new. A smaller agency, more boutique, focused on the kind of transformational work you pioneered with the hotel campaign. And I want you to be my partner, not just creatively, but actually. Equal ownership, equal say, building something together from the ground up." Clara stared at him. "You want to leave Wolf Creative? I want to build something different, something that's ours, not just mine. I've been running that agency solo for 7 years, and I'm ready for a real partnership." "What about Leo? The stability? Everything you've built?" "Leo will be fine. And what I've built, Clara, I built it alone because I was afraid to trust anyone else. But I trust you. With my business, with my heart, with my son. I want to do this with you." Clara felt tears threatening. "That's a huge risk." "I know. And if you need time to think about it, or if the answer is no, I understand. Your career is taking off. You don't need to tie yourself to me and my crazy ideas." "When would we start?" 6 months. Give us time to plan, to transition clients, to do it right." Clara thought about it. The risk, the opportunity. The chance to build something truly theirs. No more navigating office politics about their relationship. No more questions about whether her success was her own. Just two people creating something from nothing, together. "I have conditions," she said finally. "Name them." 1. We have separate roles. Clear divisions of responsibility so we're not stepping on each other's toes. 2. We establish boundaries between work and personal life from the start. No letting fights about campaigns bleed into fights about us. And 3, she paused and Damien raised an eyebrow. 3. Leo has to approve. If this affects his life too, he gets a say. Damien's expression softened. Deal. All 3 conditions. They shook hands formally, then immediately broke into laughter at the absurdity of negotiating a business partnership at an awards ceremony while dressed in formal wear. "We're really doing this?" Clara asked. "If you're brave enough." "I kissed a stranger in the rain to prove a point to my ex-boyfriend. I think I can handle starting a business." "That stranger turned out to be your boss. And look how that worked out." They kissed right there in the hallway of the hotel, and Clara didn't care who saw. They'd spent enough time hiding, enough energy protecting themselves from risk. It was time to actually live. The conversation with Leo happened the following weekend. Damien had prepared carefully, explaining that he was thinking about starting a new company with Clara, that it would mean some changes, but exciting ones. Leo listened seriously, eating his cereal, then asked the question that mattered. "Will you still be able to pick me up from school?" "Most days, yes. And on days I can't, Clara's offered to help." Leo looked at Clara, who'd been nervously drinking coffee at the kitchen counter. "You'd pick me up? If that's okay with you, I know I'm not your parent, but I care about you, and I want to help however I can." "What if the other kids ask who you are?" Clara had thought about this. "What do you want me to say?" Leo considered it. "You could say you're my dad's girlfriend, because you are, right?" Damien and Clara exchanged glances. They'd been careful not to label things in front of Leo, letting him adjust at his own pace. "I am," Clara confirmed. "Is that okay?" "I guess. Riley in my class has a stepmom and she's nice. Are you going to be my stepmom?" "Whoa, slow down," Damien interjected. "Let's take things one step at a time." But Leo had already moved on, more interested in his cereal than the adults' relationship complications. "Can I come visit the new office when you build it?" "Absolutely," Clara said. "We'll even give you a desk." "With dinosaur stickers?" "Obviously." The partnership became official 4 months later. Clara gave notice at Wolf Creative with mixed feelings. Gratitude for the opportunity that had changed her life. Relief to be moving beyond the complications that had shadowed her time there. Her last day was bittersweet, marked by goodbye drinks and promises to stay in touch. Marcus hugged her hard. "You're going to kill it out there." "I hope so. I know so. And for what it's worth, I never believed the rumors. Your work was always too good to be anything but earned." Samira was less sentimental and more practical. Don't forget about us little people when you're running the world. Never. And you know there's always a place for you if you want to make a move. Ask me in a year. Let's see if you and Wolf can actually work together without killing each other first. The new agency, Hayes and Wolf Creative, launched on a rainy Tuesday in October, almost exactly a year after that first kiss on the rooftop. They'd rented a small space in Brooklyn, just 4 employees to start, focused on quality over quantity. The first few months were chaos. Long hours, tight budgets, the constant hustle of building something from nothing. Clara and Damien fought about creative direction, about hiring decisions, about whether to take on certain clients. But they'd established their boundaries early, and mostly they held. Work disagreements stayed at work. At home, and Claire had started staying over enough that home had become Damien's apartment more often than not. They were partners in a different way, figuring out bedtime routines with Leo, navigating the complexities of blending their lives, learning how to be a family without the traditional structure. It wasn't always smooth. Leo had nightmares sometimes about Clara leaving. Clara struggled with the loss of independence, with learning to consider a child's needs, and decisions about her time. Damien fell back into old patterns of control when he was stressed, trying to manage everything instead of trusting their partnership. But they worked through it, honest conversations over coffee, family meetings where even Leo got a vote. Therapy, both couples and individual, to process the complicated emotions of building something new from the wreckage of old hurts. 6 months after launching the agency, they landed their first major client, a tech company looking to rebrand around mental health and work-life balance. The irony wasn't lost on Clara as she worked 70-hour weeks to develop a campaign about the importance of rest. "We're hypocrites," she told Damien one night, both of them at their desks at 9 p.m. "The best kind. We know exactly what our clients need because we're terrible at doing it ourselves." That's depressing. Or honest. Damien saved his work and closed his laptop. "Come on, let's go home. We have 3 more hours of work to do. And it'll still be there tomorrow. Leo's been asking why you're never around for dinner anymore." The guilt hit hard. Claire had been so focused on proving the agency could succeed that she'd neglected the other part of her life. The 7-year-old who'd started calling her by name instead of Dad's girlfriend, who saved her drawings from art class to show her, who'd asked last week if she was going to live with them forever. "You're right. Let's go home." They picked up Thai food on the way back, arriving to find Leo and the babysitter building an elaborate Lego structure. Leo's face lit up when he saw them. "You're home early. Missed you," Clara said, ruffling his hair. "What are we building?" "A dinosaur museum. Want to help?" They spent the rest of the evening on the floor with Lego bricks, arguing about architectural integrity and whether pterodactyls counted as dinosaurs, and Clara felt something settle in her chest. This was what mattered, not the awards or the client wins or the industry recognition. This, sitting on the floor with people she loved, building something that would get knocked down and rebuilt tomorrow. The agency's first anniversary came with surprising success. They'd grown to 12 employees, landed 6 major clients, and were profitable ahead of projections. Industry publications were calling Hayes and Wolf the boutique agency to watch, and Clara's phone rang constantly with opportunities. But the real victory was smaller, more personal. It was Leo running to hug her when she picked him up from school. It was Damien trusting her enough to disagree with her creative direction without fear of damaging their relationship. It was building something together that was stronger than the sum of its parts. On the actual anniversary, Damien surprised Clara by closing the office early and taking her to the rooftop bar where they'd first met. The same view of the city, the same charged atmosphere, everything familiar but fundamentally different. "A year ago, I stood here thinking my life was over," Clara said, leaning against the railing. "Humiliated by my ex, terrified about starting a new job, convinced I'd never figure things out. And now? Now I'm terrified for completely different reasons, but also happier than I knew I could be." Damien pulled a small box from his pocket, and Clara's heart stopped. "Before you panic," he said quickly, "this isn't a proposal. We've talked about that timeline, and I'm not screwing it up by jumping ahead." "Then what is it?" He opened the box to reveal a simple silver necklace with a small pendant, 2 overlapping circles, interlinked but distinct. "A promise," Damien said, "that we're partners. In business, in life, in all the messy, complicated ways that matter. That I see you, I choose you, and I'm done being too scared to say it out loud." Clara felt tears spill over as he fastened it around her neck. I love you. Even though you're still terrible at letting people help you, and you work too much and you panic every time Leo gets a runny nose. I love you too. Even though you're stubborn and you never admit when you're wrong, and you reorganized my entire filing system without asking. It was a disaster. It was my disaster. They kissed on the same rooftop where everything had started, but this time there was no rain, no desperation, no humiliation to escape. Just two people who'd taken the biggest risks of their lives and found something worth keeping. What would you tell that version of yourself? Damien asked. The woman standing here a year ago? Clara thought about it, about the struggling, uncertain person she'd been, convinced that playing it safe was the only way to survive. I'd tell her that the scariest decisions are usually the right ones, that kissing strangers in the rain sometimes leads to the most important connections. That being vulnerable isn't weakness, it's the only way to actually live. Would she believe you? Probably not, but that's okay. She'd figure it out eventually. They stayed until the bar closed, talking and laughing and planning the future they were building together. When they finally headed home, to Damien's apartment that had slowly become their apartment, to Leo, who was staying at his grandmother's for the night, to the life they'd created from nothing but courage and stubbornness, Clara felt the full weight of how far they'd come. It hadn't been smooth, it hadn't been perfect. They'd made mistakes and hurt each other and questioned everything 100 times. But they'd also chosen each other, over and over, through every complication and obstacle. And that, Clara thought, as they walked hand in hand through the New York night, was what actually mattered. Not the fairy tale version where everything worked out easily, but the real version, where two flawed people fought for something worth fighting for and built a life from the wreckage of their fears. The next morning, Clara woke to find Leo had snuck back early, crawling into bed between her and Damien with his stuffed dinosaur and a book he wanted read immediately. You're supposed to be at Grandma's until noon, Damien mumbled, still half asleep. She brought me back early because I missed you guys. Can Clara make pancakes? Clara laughed, pulling the kid close. I can make pancakes. They spent the morning in their pajamas, making a mess of the kitchen, arguing about chocolate chip placement, and generally being the kind of family Clara never thought she'd have. It wasn't traditional. It was complicated and messy and required constant navigation. But it was theirs. Later, while Leo was occupied with cartoons and Damien was cleaning up the pancake disaster, Clara's phone rang. An unknown number she almost didn't answer. Clara Hayes, this is Victoria Morrison from the American Advertising Federation. Clara's pulse jumped. The AAF was huge. Industry recognition from them meant something significant. Yes, hi, what can I do for you? We'd like to extend an invitation for you to speak at our annual conference next month. We've been following the work coming out of Hayes and Wolf, and your transformation campaign in particular resonated with our members. We think your perspective on balancing professional ambition with personal authenticity would be valuable. Clara looked at Damien in the kitchen, at Leo on the couch, at the life they'd built despite every obstacle. I'd be honored. The speaking engagement led to more opportunities, consulting work, guest lectures, articles in trade publications about building an agency on principles of honesty and partnership. Clara's career trajectory wasn't what she'd imagined a year ago, but it was better, more authentic, more hers. And through it all, she and Damien kept building. The agency grew slowly, deliberately, taking on clients whose missions aligned with their values. They turned down work that would have paid well but compromised their integrity. They hired people who fit their culture rather than just filling positions. It wasn't the fastest path to success, but it was sustainable. And after years of burning out trying to prove herself, Clara finally understood that sustainable was what mattered. 6 months after the rooftop anniversary, on a random Tuesday evening, Leo asked the question that had been hovering unspoken for months. Are you going to marry my dad? Clara, who'd been helping with homework, nearly choked on her water. That's a pretty big question. I know, but you're here all the time now, and you have a toothbrush in our bathroom, and you helped me with my science project even though volcanoes are messy. They are very messy. So are you going to marry him or not? Clara glanced at Damien, who'd frozen in the doorway, clearly as blindsided as she was. Would that be okay with you? Clara asked carefully. If your dad and I got married someday? Leo thought about it with his characteristic seriousness. I think so. As long as you don't try to make me call you Mom. You're Clara. I'm Clara, she agreed, and that's not going to change. Okay then, you should probably marry him because he's happier when you're around. And also, you're better at making pancakes. After Leo went to bed, Clara and Damien had their own conversation about it, less direct but more weighted. He's not wrong, Damien said, pulling Clara onto the couch beside him. About me being happier when you're around. We've only been together a year and a half. That's not very long. It's long enough to know. Long enough to have built a business and a life, and to have survived the hard parts without running. Clara thought about the fights they'd had, the obstacles they'd overcome, the daily choice to keep showing up for each other. What are you saying? I'm saying that when I imagine the future, you're in it. You and me and Leo, and whatever else we build together, and I don't need more time to know that's what I want. Are you proposing? Not yet. But I'm telling you that when I do, the answer better be yes, because I'm not good at handling rejection. Clara laughed, kissing him softly. Noted. The actual proposal came 3 months later during a camping trip that Leo had insisted on despite Clara's protests that she was not an outdoors person. They'd driven upstate, set up a tent that took twice as long as it should have, and spent the evening roasting marshmallows and looking at stars. When Leo finally fell asleep in the tent, Damien took Clara's hand and led her to the edge of the lake, where the moonlight reflected off the still water. I had this whole speech planned, he said, about how you changed my life and made me brave again, and all of it. But standing here, it just comes down to something simple. He got down on one knee, pulling out a ring that was exactly her style. Simple, elegant, nothing flashy. Clara Hayes, will you marry me? Will you keep being my partner in crime and in business, and in raising a kid who asks too many questions about dinosaurs? Will you keep calling me on my bullshit and pushing me to be better and making pancakes on Sunday mornings? Clara was crying now, nodding before she could even form words. Yes. Yes to all of it. He slipped the ring on her finger and they kissed by the lake while Leo probably watched from the tent, because that kid never actually stayed asleep when he was supposed to. But Clara didn't care. This was her life now, messy and public and full of people who saw her completely. The wedding happened 6 months later, small and intimate, just close friends and family. Leo was the ring bearer, taking his job with utmost seriousness. Jenna was Clara's maid of honor, crying through the entire ceremony. And when the officiant asked if anyone objected, Leo raised his hand before Damien's mother frantically pulled it back down, whispering that it was a rhetorical question. At the reception, Clara's father pulled her aside for a rare moment of sentimentality. You found a good one. Someone who sees you. I did, eventually. The best things are worth waiting for. Your mother and I, we fought like cats for the first 5 years, but we figured it out. Clara thought about all the fighting she and Damien had done, all the obstacles they'd overcome. How did you know it was worth it? Because even when I wanted to strangle her, I couldn't imagine my life without her in it. That's how you know. Clara looked across the room at Damien, dancing with Leo, both of them laughing at something, and felt that certainty settle deep. This was what she'd been fighting for all along. The years that followed weren't perfect. Hayes and Wolf hit rough patches, lost clients, financial scares, hiring mistakes. Clara and Damien had fights about money and parenting and whose turn it was to deal with the broken dishwasher. Leo went through phases of testing boundaries, pushing back against Clara's authority because she wasn't his real mom. But they worked through it. Family therapy helped. Date nights helped. The fundamental respect and love they'd built their relationship on helped more than anything. And slowly, the agency became exactly what they'd envisioned. A place where creativity and humanity intersected, where people did their best work because they felt seen and valued. They won awards, yes, but more importantly, they built a reputation for integrity that attracted clients who shared their values. 5 years after starting Hayes and Wolf, Clara stood in front of a room full of advertising students at NYU, telling them her story. Not the sanitized version, but the real one, about kissing a stranger to feel less alone, about falling for her boss despite knowing it was complicated, about choosing risk over safety again and again. The industry will tell you to play it safe, she said, to network the right way, to never mix business with personal, to protect your reputation above everything else. And maybe that works for some people, but I built my career by doing the opposite, by being honest about what I wanted and who I was, even when it was messy, especially when it was messy. A student raised her hand. But didn't that almost destroy your career? The rumors and the complications? Almost. But you know what actually would have destroyed my career? Spending my whole life playing small, making myself convenient, hiding the things that made me human because I was afraid of being judged. Clara thought about that woman on the rooftop, desperate and hurt and convinced she had to be someone else to succeed. The biggest risk isn't being too much. It's being too little. It's editing yourself down until there's nothing authentic left. After the talk, students mobbed her with questions, and Clara answered them patiently, remembering what it felt like to be starting out, to be terrified and uncertain and hungry for someone to tell you it was possible. She checked her phone to find a text from Damien. Leo's soccer game ran late. We'll meet you at home for dinner. Home. The word still felt significant, even after all this time. Clara had moved into Damien's apartment 2 years ago, and they'd recently started looking at houses in Brooklyn, something with a yard for Leo, space for a home office, room to grow into the future they were building. That evening, Clara walked into chaos. Leo covered in mud from soccer, Damien trying to cook dinner while simultaneously helping with homework, the dog they'd gotten last year barking at a squirrel outside. It was loud and messy and exactly what she'd signed up for. "How was the talk?" Damien asked, kissing her hello. "Good. Made me nostalgic." "For what?" "For being terrified and uncertain, for the beginning of all this." "You miss being terrified?" Clara laughed, picking up the dog before he knocked over a lamp. "Not exactly, but there was something pure about it, you know? Before we knew if it would work. When we were just choosing each other despite every reason not to. We're still choosing each other, every day." "I know. But now it's a choice we've proven works. Back then, it was just faith." Later that night, after Leo was in bed and the kitchen was clean and the dog was settled, Clara and Damien sat on their tiny balcony with wine and the comfortable silence of people who didn't need to fill every gap with words. "I've been thinking about something," Damien said finally. "Dangerous. I want to write a book. About building the agency, about partnership, about doing business differently." Clara raised an eyebrow. "You hate writing." "I hate bad writing. But I think we have something worth sharing. The mistakes we made, the things we learned, how we built something sustainable." "We?" "Obviously it's a joint project. You're the better writer anyway." Clara thought about it. Another project, another collaboration, another way to build something together. "Okay, but I have conditions." "Why am I not surprised?" "We're honest. Really honest. About the fights and the failures and all the unglamorous parts. No sanitized business book bullshit about how we had a vision and executed flawlessly." "Deal. What else?" "We donate the profits to programs that help women in advertising, people from underrepresented backgrounds trying to break into creative fields." Damien smiled. "I love that. Anything else?" "Yeah, we dedicate it to Leo for teaching us that family isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up." "He's going to be insufferable when he sees his name in print." "Probably, but he's earned it." They started writing the book that fall, carving out time between client work and school pickups and all the other demands of their lives. It was slow-going, painful at times, forcing them to revisit moments they'd rather forget. But it was also cathartic, a way of making sense of everything they'd been through. The book came out 2 years later to surprising success. Not a bestseller, but something better. A resource that people actually used, that sparked conversations about doing business with integrity, about building partnerships that honored both professional ambition and personal truth. And through it all, Clara kept learning that love wasn't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone willing to grow alongside you. That success wasn't about avoiding mistakes, but about learning from them. That the biggest risk she'd ever taken, kissing a stranger in the rain, had led to the most important journey of her life. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Clara and Damien took Leo back to that rooftop bar where everything started. He was 12 now, too cool for his parents, but still willing to humor them occasionally. "This is where you guys met?" he asked, looking around skeptically. "It's kind of basic." "It was perfect," Clara said, "for what we needed." "Which was what?" Clara looked at Damien, and he took her hand, the familiar gesture still sending warmth through her chest. "Courage," Damien said, "to take a chance on something uncertain." "And to keep taking chances," Clara added, "every single day." Leo rolled his eyes with all the drama of a preteen. You guys are so cheesy. We are, Clara agreed, and you're stuck with us. They stayed until sunset, watching the city light up below them, and Clara thought about how far they'd come from that desperate kiss in the rain. She'd been running from humiliation then, trying to prove something to an ex who didn't matter. Now she was running toward something, a partnership, a family, a life she'd built with intention and courage. It wasn't the story she'd imagined for herself. It was better because it was real, because it was earned through hard conversations and harder choices, because it proved that the best things in life weren't the ones that came easily, but the ones you fought for, day after day, choosing love over fear. And if Clara could go back to that rooftop, to the struggling 30-year-old woman convinced her life was falling apart, she'd tell her something simple. Trust yourself. Trust that you know what you want, even when it scares you. Trust that being vulnerable isn't weakness, but the only way to find something real. Trust that the biggest risks lead exactly where you're supposed to be. But she wouldn't go back. Not when the future she'd built with Damien and Leo was everything she'd ever wanted and more. Not when every messy, complicated, imperfect moment had led her here. To a rooftop with her family, to a life she'd chosen with her whole heart, to the understanding that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision to love anyway. The story that began with a reckless kiss had become something neither of them could have predicted. Not just a romance, but a partnership. Not just a career, but a mission. Not just surviving, but actually living, with all the risk and reward that entailed. And as they left the rooftop that night, Clara Hayes Wolfe, creative director, partner, wife, stepmother, and the woman who'd learned that sometimes the most reckless thing you can do is choose yourself, felt nothing but gratitude for every choice that had led her here. Because in the end, that's what it came down to. Not perfection, not having all the answers, just the courage to keep choosing love, partnership, and truth, even when it would be easier to run, especially when it would be easier to run. That was the real transformation. Not from struggling to successful, but from afraid to brave, from hidden to seen, from alone to loved, complications and all. And that, Clara thought, as Damien took her hand and Leo walked ahead complaining about being hungry, was worth every risk she'd ever taken.